Just feel the love, oh yeah. Go ahead now, alright. Just feel the love, ooh. Don't stop, don't ever stop. Just because.
Hola, mi gente. Hello, my people, and welcome to Latinx Heroes Past, Present, and Future. My name is Javier Pedrosa, and I am your host. Happy New Year, guys. It is 2021. We're here. We made it past 2020, and we are hitting the ground running because you know what? Change does not take a break. And looking back at 2020, it was a year, full of global surprises. I mean, first we dealt with the bushfires, right? Going through Australia, burning 18.6 million hectares and killing 1 billion animals. Then we went to the U.S. drone hitting Baghdad International Airport. We had to deal with that whole ordeal and had to face the racial tensions over police brutality, right? Reaching out. I mean, I think that it's at a point of no return, and we still have to deal with the worst pandemic in recent history that has killed 1.82 million. I hate even saying this number of people around the world so far. And, in New York alone, we have had 38,000 deaths. So our condolences to everyone who has suffered through the pandemic and, the effects of the pandemic, right? 2020 has been obviously an unprecedented year, to say the least. And we all had to adapt to certain, situations together, adopting, new social distancing protocols. We have had to develop newly found skills and talent with the free time that we have been granted. Some say, that has been a blessing, and some might say, is just people have faced really overwhelming hardships. So, luckily for me, I say every day that I'm blessed just to, breathe. To have my family okay, I think anybody who has Wi-Fi today should consider themselves privileged. And I think that we should all do something about it. So I personally created this visual podcast, due to one of the main issues that we deal with, and we continue to deal with, and that is the lack of education and the truth behind our history. I believe education is one of the strongest weapons that we have to battle the unbalanced scale of people of color and marginalized groups that live, So I have put together a list of Hispanic and Latinx American heroes who are change makers, role models, and have worked and continue working towards building a better tomorrow. We're highlighting Latinx heroes who have made an undeniable impact on the U.S. and the world around them, from education to war heroes, preserving the Latino culture to equal rights. These Hispanic and Latinx Americans represent what it means to be a global citizen. Together, we will explore their early public and personal lives, their philanthropic endeavors, and amazing history-making moments. And today's episode, we are highlighting a super special Latinx hero who happens to be a history maker. She is the first Latina, the first Afro-Latina to run for mayor of our beautiful New York City. I get so overwhelmed just thinking of the possibility of having someone like Ms. Dianne Morales, who is a New Yorker from Best Side, Brooklyn, who is a proud, strong, single mom of two. I mean, she is, and her kids are just magnificent. I mean, they're amazing, amazing kids. And then, young adults, I should say, they're both in college right now. Dianne is a first generation college grad, educator and advocate. And she has experience as a nonprofit CEO, right? And so because she's running, I said, what can I do to support my Afro-Boricua sister in this journey, in this movement that she has created. And let me just give you a little background about Dianne. She has graduate degrees from both Columbia and Harvard. And most recently, she served as the CEO of an anti-poverty organization in the South Bronx, providing housing for homeless families, young adults that were aging out of foster care while supporting the mentally ill. That's just only mentioning a few of her responsibilities. You know, again, she was born in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and I know she's proud of that, and she loves it, to two working class Puerto Rican parents. She's also an educator. She's the LGBTQI plus advocate of the dreams. You know, here in the city, I met Dianne on the streets. I met her at the Queer March parade that protest, excuse me, because that was built by the people, and they named Dianne their, oh my God, I'm forgetting the word right now. Chair, oh my God. It's gonna come to me. Parade, Marshal, the Grand Marshal of the parade, guys. So that says so much to me because the people, our community has selected her to be that person, right? And I met her as she was blocking traffic. She was blocking traffic. And I saw her and I was like, oh my God, that's her. The most amazing thing that I love about her is that Dianne believes that time will not change things, that we will. Everyone, please welcome Ms. Dianne Morales to Latinx Heroes Past, Present, and Future. Hi, Dianne.
Hi, Javier. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for having me here.
Happy New Year. You look absolutely stunningly gorgeous.
Thank you.
2021 is already treating you amazingly gorgeous.
Thank you. Got to start the new year off right.
Absolutely. Let's start by asking you, what are your pronouns, Ms. Morales?
I am she, her, ella.
Eso. All right. So listen, how did you celebrate your New Year's Eve?
You know, I think we were so ready to say goodbye to 2020. We were just chilling at home, relaxing. It was a nice, quiet evening with family. We had great food. We had a few drinks, and we watched a little TV. And we were, you know, just ready to sort of say goodbye quietly and welcome in the new year.
Absolutely, and we're definitely welcoming it. And I feel so happy because we're welcoming it with our community. And, you know, so many people are tuning in from like everywhere. And I'm so thankful to everyone who's tuning in because all of New York is here because we're going around the 5 boroughs.
Yeah.
You know? That in itself is like unprecedented, you know? So listen, I first want to say that I want to start by respecting, right? And I feel that there was a lack of respect in 2020. There was a lack of pretty much a lot of things, right? Including empathy and gratitude and a bunch of things that we need to talk about. But I want to start with respect because we have to acknowledge the population of New York that we are, in fact, on stolen land and that we are in the home of the Lenape people, which literally means original people. Lenape means original people. And today we have a fierce warrior, and he is a member and advisor of the Ramapu Munsee Lenape Nation, and he's a descendant of original people of Manhattan. His father worked as an intern in Congress with Adam Clayton Powell. I mean, this is how it is. And his grandfather and other Ramapu from the mountains fought with the 369th Regiment, the Harlem Hellfighters. So when we say these are our people, these people are from here, we are going to show you an example. Please welcome Mr. Owl to Latinx Heroes because he is going to be giving us a prayer and an acknowledgement of where we're at. Hello, Mr. Owl. How are you?
Hello. Hello. In our language, we would say kulamasi, which means how are you feeling today? Kulamasi.
Kulamasi to you, sir. Meet Dianne Morales.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure and honor to meet you.
Likewise. Likewise. I'd like to start my remarks with a prayer in the Munsee language, which is the original language of Manhattan. Anushik Huachi Manidu, Anushik Ki Shalamokwing, Elamiliang, Kakana Ki, Walk Mbi, walk, cash home, walk, Tindao, Anushik, 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 Anushik. And these are the words, a prayer from the Munsee language, which it's interesting. I mean, New York is the most linguistically diverse place on the planet. I think over 800 languages are spoken here. Until recently, Munsee was not spoken here because of the genocide and it being forced from these lands, but because of relations we have in Canada in particular, we're bringing the language back. And so Munsee is once again rejoining these languages. The irony being that Manhattan is a Munsee word meaning, land of many hills. And the prayer that I said in English was, thank you, Great Spirit, or Great Energy. Thank you, from whose thoughts we arose, for giving us our Mother Earth, the waters, wind, and fire. It's a recognition that what we most have or need in this world, we take for granted too much and too often. And I'm glad to see that the people here in Manhattan are pushing leadership to take stronger stands on the environment. And then finally, I just said thank you 4 times, Anushik, 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 Anushik. So thank you for honoring my ancestors, the original people of Manhattan, and special regards from our chief, Dwayne Perry. So thank you, Anushik.
Amazing, sir. As we spoke, I had the pleasure and the honor to speak with Owl and kind of travel through our cultures and heritages and understand what we face, and even in our own, day in and day out. And I think that is very important. Again, with 2021, having a candidate that is running a grassroots campaign, that is running for the people, for the inclusion of indigenous folks, has to be atop of the list. Like, there's no way. So with that, Owl, I would love for you to ask Dianne a question that you think is important to ask to the potential next New York City mayor.
The question I would ask is whether New York City is prepared to, formally, recognize Ramapo Lenape Nation and the Munsee people in terms of being the original people of Manhattan. And why I say that specifically is that while we're part of the larger Lenape family, we, as descendants of the Munsee people, our ancestral lands included lands north of the Raritan River up to a little bit south of Albany. Unfortunately, racism doesn't seem to know any boundaries. And we have relations in Oklahoma who went there about the mid-1700s, 1750s or so, who tend to be whiter than we are. They have more intermarriage with Europeans. We have, Europeans that have married into our tribe as well as Africans. But, it could be because, as I think what they say the Willie Sutton rule is, they asked Willie Sutton one time, why he robbed banks, and he said, because that's where the money is. I mean, Manhattan is where the money is, not so much Oklahoma. Could be that, maybe racism, probably racism, but anyway, they don't recognize us. Mm-hmm. One of the tragedies being we invited them to a meeting in New York City to commemorate the 400th anniversary of the Dutch contact. One of our members, Chris Moore, who's with the Schoenberg Museum and a New Yorker to the core, he had a vision of a United Lenape community group. They co-opted that, kicked us off of that initiative, and are now telling New York City that they're the only Lenape peoples. So I just wanted to put that on your radar screen and that of other New York politicians. I know that they're already talking to the city. Just wanted to make sure that, we're not trying to be negative here. We're trying to be positive. And that we, as people who remained in this area, primarily now in the Ramapo Mountains, which is still the metropolitan area, that we get the recognition that we merit as the descendants of the original people in these lands. And unfortunately, like I said earlier, racism doesn't seem to know any boundaries, both within and without. And without airing any dirty laundry, with our communities, we can see how that plays out. So it's an ugly monster that we have to confront. So I just wanted to know if you as mayor would recognize the Ramapo Munsee Lenape people.
Well, thank you, first of all, so much for sharing that, what must be a really painful story. You know, I'll say this, you know, my campaign is grounded in the notion of centering and elevating the voices of those who have historically been ignored, marginalized, oppressed. That is the center and the core of what I'm running on, and what I choose and hope to do in my candidacy and my administration. And so, you know, I recognize the impact that erasing the history of our people and the existence of our people has on our communities. And I think it's really important to not just recognize, but to honor all of those who have come before us and all of those who are present today. I have experienced erasure. I have experienced the detrimental impact of erasure through whether it's through the lens of racism or classism or sexism. And I know that those, you know, the ripple effects of that gets carried on internally and for generations. And so, you know, I also understand with you know, from the sort of indigenous perspective, it has economic impact. It has, you know, impact on education, on just our people's ability to survive and to thrive and to live in dignity. And I've made a commitment not only to elevate the voices and the existence of so many who have not been recognized in our society's democracy, but also to make sure that those voices and experience are being centered in decision making and policy moving forward. So that is my commitment to you and all of the people of Ramapo and Muncie in particular. You know, I am sorry that this has been the experience. I recognize it. I see you, and I commit to partnering with you to make a difference.
Well, thank you so much. That we really appreciate that. Honor Sheik on behalf of the Ramapo people. Honor Sheik.
Thank you, Ala. You know, we're gonna be definitely keeping in touch, because the point of this is to build bridges, right, and to come together as people. And so we're gonna be hanging out. For sure.
That.
Again, sir, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.
All right.
We don't say.
Oh my God, how amazing was that?
Really incredible. Really powerful.
Every event needs to open in that way. I feel like it should be part of the law. I don't know. But, you know, next, oh my God. So this is like a 2-hour show, right, that we said that we had to do, because we're going around all 5 boroughs.
Yeah.
And that means that we need some help, because we are literally going to have a co-host for today. And her name is Katrina Lovelace. And she goes by, she is that Bronx Zoo queen. She is a first-generation Mexican-American. She has been performing in the New York City nightlife scene for the past 6.5 years. Recently, she has adapted herself and has now been producing monthly curated drag-themed shows on Twitch. She also has been working drag livery with Fresco's Cantina, which we're going to talk about, and was featured in El Gordo y la Flaca for her work with drag delivery. Oh my God, which is such an amazing concept. Everybody say hello to Katrina Lovelace. Hi, Katrina.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Oh, this little old thing.
Miss Katrina, meet Ms. Morales.
Hi, Miss Dianne Morales.
Hi, beautiful. How are you?
I am beautiful, like you just said.
You are beautiful. Wow.
I tried my best. I tried my best. Like a good Bronx Zoo hooker, I stole someone's house. I don't know whose house this is, but I made it. And I'm here to support in any way, shape, or form that I can.
I love it. I love it. And I want to ask you, has been COVID? Because again, I talked about drag livery, which is such a great concept. Tell our viewers about it.
COVID has been an interesting experience, especially for us freelancers, because all bars, all restaurants, all of Broadway shut down, and there wasn't really anything to kind of back us up in the sense of financial needs.
Yeah.
But we were able to, at least for myself and for many other people, we were able to kind of find niches here and there. A drag delivery was something that Fresco's Cantina started, which was a brunch service that if they paid an extra $15, they had one of us deliver the food and perform on the sidewalk, socially distant and everything. So it was definitely adapting to our new norm, but it's definitely has affected many people, not only just us. So yeah.
Right. Well, I think it's amazing because I was like, you know, how creative can you get? And you know, you guys are used to like performing on stages and things. Like these ladies were out in sidewalks doing dip and layout and stuff. I was like, oh my, I would pay another $15 to get that show.
Yeah.
Listen, those $15 I needed for my insurance because trust and believe me, doing a jump split on the sidewalk concrete, it's not a cute look.
Well, you do it gracefully beautiful. So you know what? Katrina's gonna stick around with us. She's gonna be coming in and out. And later on when we get to the Bronx, because that's where she's from, she's gonna come in and she's gonna ask her own question to Dianne, because we also want to hear from Miss Lovelace, honey. We have to know how, you know, the Afro-Mexican gorgeousness feels. You know what I'm saying? They exist, sweetie. They exist.
We're there in the world, exactly.
All right, Miss Katrina. We'll see you in a minute, sweetie.
All right, bye.
Yeah.
I mean, I love. There's just, I sort of got.
I love that. What a presence. What a presence.
Know, beautiful. All right, speaking of presents, oh my goodness, Dianne, let me just tell you, when I decided to do this, and you know, and your team, your volunteers team, which we'll get to because they're all amazing.
Yes.
Thank you so much. The queens, honey, came so rude. You see me wearing my Sylvia and Marsha P, honey.
I love that t-shirt.
Because the power for the people. That's what Diana's all about, honey.
That's
so
right.
We got in touch with Britta Filter, who is a drag performer and was one of the season 12 contestants of RuPaul's Drag Race. She's also the national co-chair of the Drag Out Your Vote, a nonpartisan nonprofit organization that works with drag performers to promote participation and democracy. I mean, that is incredible because Diana and I have had the discussions of making sure that our kids and our youth is registered. You know, everyone has to register. So this is amazing. She is the first Polynesian queen to go on RuPaul. So I'm here about the first.
Yes, love the first.
I hang out with first.
The first, the second, the third, they're all great. All of them.
Yeah. So right now, she is in Hawaii. She's spending some time with her family, but she didn't want to miss the opportunity to be with us. So ladies and gentlemen, say hello and enjoy our opening number from Ms. Britta Filter.
Yes, bring it.
Hello to the beautiful people of NYC, Javier and Ms. Dianne Morales. I am so thrilled to be with you all virtually from beautiful Hawaii because as we begin 2021, I feel extremely happy to know that my people up in New York City, honey, have come together to discuss the future and to celebrate the first Latina, not even a Latina, but an Afro-Latina, to run for NYC mayor. Dianne, you are truly an incredible human being. I know that New York City doesn't work until it works for everyone. And mama, you got a plan. You got a plan. Listen, I was raised by a single mom raising 3 kids. You a single mom raising 2 beautiful kids. And also, you are a double Ivy League degree graduate from Columbia and Harvard. Mama, she's smart. And she's going to take us where we need to go because it's time to fix a broken system instead of patching up these leaks. And Miss Dianne Morales is going to what? Mama, she's going to take us there. I'm so happy to be here virtually with you. I'm sorry I can't be there live, but I have this number that I wanted to do for you guys. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful 2021, and please vote for Miss Dianne Morales because, honey, I'm a vote. So you better vote for her, okay? You hear what I'm saying? All right, hit the track. Hit it. Hit it. Alexa, play me something that will cheer me up.
Playing Mickey M. James.
Don't tell me not to live, just sit and putter. Life's candy and the sun's a ball of butter. Don't bring around a cloud to rain on my parade. Don't tell me not to fly, I've simply got to. If someone takes a spill, it's me and not you. Who told you you're allowed to rain on my parade? I'll march my band out, I'll beat my drum, and if I'm found out, your turn at bat, sir. At least I didn't fake it, hat, sir. I guess I didn't make it, but whether I'm the rose of sheer perfection, a freckle on the nose of life's complexion, the cinder or the shiny apple of its eye, I gotta fly once, I gotta try once, only can die once, right, sir? Ooh, life is juicy, juicy, and you'll see I'm gonna have my bite, sir. Get ready for me, love, 'cause I'm a comer. I've simply got to march, my heart's a drummer. Don't bring around a cloud to rain on my parade. I'm gonna live and live now. Get what I want, I know how. One roll for the whole shebang. One throw, that bell will go clang. Eye on the target and wham! One shot, one gunshot and bam! Hey, Mr. Arnstein, here I am. I'll march my band out. I will beat my drum. And if I'm found out, your turn at bat, sir. At least I didn't fake it, hat, sir. I guess I didn't make it. Get ready for me, love, 'cause I'm a comer. I've simply got to march, my heart's a drummer. Nobody, no, nobody is gonna rain on my parade.
That was so amazing.
Oh my God, it's like she's here. Oh,
I love it.
oh my God, Britta Filter, thank you so much for that amazing opening. That is an opening.
Yes.
And that is the way we go into 2021. Nobody's going to rain on our parade.
I need to add that to the campaign playlist. That song, that whole thing. I want it. I need it.
That's the whole moment. Oh my God, that was incredible. Again, thank you, Ms. Britta. So, okay, Dianne, we are ready. Let's get our 5 borough tour started. And we are going to get started with Brooklyn. That's where Dianne Morales is from. You know what I'm saying? She's from Best Side Brooklyn. Tell us, Dianne, how does it make you feel to, like, you know, represent and hopefully be our next mayor coming and stemming from Brooklyn?
I mean, you know, I'm Brooklyn. I am Brooklyn. Brooklyn is me, but I'm also New York City, right? Like I am the consummate, I think, New Yorker, born and raised here. I have so much more in common with, you know, the average New Yorker than I think, you know, we've ever actually really had in leadership. So I'm excited about bringing the people, bringing the neighborhoods, bringing the community to City Hall and having that, you know, whole thing represented in a different kind of way. You know, New York, Brooklyn in particular is sort of known for having different sort of hubs and neighborhoods that represent different cultures and different communities, whether it's the African-American community or the Latino community or the Hasidic community, right? I mean, we have our little sort of like little niches all over New York City, all over Brooklyn. And that's what it's always been to me. It's obviously it's different. It's a little bit different now than it was when I was growing up, but still we still have those sort of ethnic flavors in the different communities. And Brooklyn is sort of a congregation of neighborhoods, right? That each have its own kind of flavor, and it's home. It's home.
Yeah, and they have like their own magic. You can have a picnic at Prospect Park, or you can go down to Dumba. Like, there's so much stuff to do.
Coney Island. I mean, Coney Island. You know, I mean,
iconic, right? It's an iconic destination. So first, since we're home, we're gonna start with home. Our first guest is a lovely young woman who is super intelligent and gorgeous, and she is Dianne Morales. She is literally Dianne Morales' daughter, who has been on the front line. She has literally been with her mom day in and day out. I met her on the streets, also, you know, COVID, but she's been doing the work. Hi, Gabi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
So good, beautiful. I think you know this lady.
Yeah, I'm quite familiar with her.
Hi, honey.
So tell us, Gabi, how does it feel to have a mom, well, that's such badass, you know, and like that is literally running to be mayor of New York City?
Well, she's always been a badass, so that wasn't very like shocking or like new to me. But when she told us that she was going to run for mayor, like that, the idea, I'm gonna be honest, it was a little frightening and terrifying, because it's something that I've always like heard people say to her throughout my life, like, you should run for mayor, you should run for mayor. But it's not like anything that I seriously like thought of. But it's also not something that I'm like surprised or like who else could be perfect for this position? It's like something that it's just such a simple, of course, but I just would have never thought of it before.
Right.
It was amazing watching it evolve over this past year.
And Dianne, how does it feel for you to like, you know, share this experience with your children, right? Because you have 2 adult children.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like Gabi mentioned, this is not, you know, it wasn't just new for her. It was new for me too. The idea that I would actually jump into and step into this space. I do think it's, you know, I think it's really important for those of us who have not been reflected and represented in leadership to claim the space that we rightfully deserve, that belongs to us as well, right? It is the sort of like consummate definition of democracy to feel like leadership and representation is something that is accessible and available to all of us, even though it wasn't created for us, or it hasn't been sort of done in such a way that to make it easy for us. But I think that's really important. And, you know, my kids have been, you know, they are a part of me. They inspire me every day. The challenges that they have overcome, I think are, you know, a microcosm of the challenges that a lot of people in our communities have to deal with, and the hurdles that get put in our way. And so they inspire me and make it possible for me to kind of put one foot in front of the other and take on things that I never thought I would be able to take on. And they've been incredibly supportive of this campaign. You know, Gabriela in particular has been a social media kind of guru. For those of you who don't know, we have quite a following on TikTok, and she has managed that account and set up that account, and I kind of do what she tells me to do for that. Because, you know, she's got her finger on the pulse, and we've had a tremendous response. The last thing I'll say is that she's also been my partner in activism this year in particular, because she was home from college, right? So, you know, when I was out on the streets in protests and marshaling, you know, for marches and protests and stuff that you referenced, she was right there with me by my side, planning, organizing, strategizing, mobilizing. And that's been new for us because she was here and able to participate with me as a young adult. And so, you know, we've developed, you know, sharing that and doing that in partnership with your child is really, really significant. And I'm so proud of her and my son, who's not here today, but my son as well has been very, very active.
I know, I love it. And, you know, when I talked to Gabi about coming on, you know, I definitely, because again, I've seen her on the streets with you, and, you know, I see even when you're not watching how she protects you. Like, it is a beautiful thing to see. So I wanted Gabi to get a question ready as a private citizen New Yorker for the next mayor, not as the New York daughter, first daughter yet. Like, how would you, as a private citizen, what question would you ask Dianne?
Well, I already know the answer to this question, but I love it. So I would ask, like, what have you done in the past to help the LGBTQ youth community?
Uh-oh.
Say that again, sweetie, because it's time to stop.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I said the question is, what have you done in the past, like in your past work, to help the LGBTQ youth community?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been thinking about this a lot over the last couple of months because I do feel like such an affinity and such a special relationship with the LGBT community. And I've been trying to figure out, like, why, where does that come from? What is that about? And I'm not really sure. I think there's something about sharing a sense of being othered and sharing a sense of, a shared sense of kind of like marginalization and oppression and that kind of thing. And I recognize that the experiences are different, but there's enough commonality there for me. And so, I in particular, the thing that comes to mind is that in my role as the executive director of The Door, which is an organization that serves young people across the city, I did a lot to expand programming to reach and support the LGBTQIA youth population in particular. Because I think, you recognize that young people coming out or young people struggling with, gender or sexual identity are often misunderstood, are often rejected by family, and all of the sort of challenges of just adolescent challenges to begin with, but then you add these other layers. And so I did a lot in my role as the executive director of The Door to increase programming. We did an outreach program on the piers at the Chelsea Piers for LGBT youth who were runaways or homeless. We started hosting our own balls and kiki, stuff at The Door in partnership with other LGBT serving organizations, and just to create a safe space for them to feel like they could be anything, they could be their true selves in that space, and that they could come together safely and gather as a community and sort of do things that are normal for young people to do. While they were also accessing other services where there were education or career or those kinds of things. And then the last thing I'll say on that, because I can go on forever.
You do so much for us, that's why, go ahead.
Well, for all of us, right? Because we're all inextricably linked, was to do housing. I did some housing programs for LGBTQ youth who were transitioning out of foster care, and needed a place to live, because one of the things that the system does not do very well is to prepare them from, transitioning out of foster care and how they then sort of live on their own in a stable way.
Did that answer your question, Miss Gabby?
Yes, I think it did.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Miss Gabby, for stopping by and hanging out with us.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
All right, we'll see you later. Thank you.
Hi, honey.
Your daughter's so amazing. You really did an amazing job, Dianne. That just goes to, say what a kind of mother and person you are. All right, guys. Next, we're going to go with another Brooklynite, otra puertorriqueña. She is Boricua, honey, and she is the co-creator and managing partner at Tag Media Group with her partner Danielle Shartrock, and they are so amazing. Listen, Marilyn Lopez is one of New York's perpetual leaders in an ever-changing world. She does marketing, she does PR, she's worked with everyone. I will have to create another show just to list. So everybody, welcome Ms. Marilyn Lopez, because we have some stuff to talk about over here. Right? I love that she's from Brooklyn. I love that she is, Marilyn, say hi to Dianne.
Hi, Marilyn. Happy New Year.
Year to you. I'm really excited to be here.
It's so good to see you.
Likewise.
Thank you so much. When I was talking to Marilyn about having her here and just explaining and, just literally when you talk about Dianne, all you have to say is the truth. So literally just told her, and automatically there was the connection, right? Both of them being from Brooklyn, both of them having Puerto Rican parents, being single moms at, you know, one point, right, Marilyn? Like all of these beautiful things. And I said, you have to be a part of this because you are New York. How do you feel about having somebody like Dianne run?
Absolutely 100% excited. I cannot even tell you how excited I am to have someone that I can connect with for the first time in my life as a Latina run for the run for New York City. It's incredible. When you first spoke to me about it, I said, I'm all in 100%. You know, Dianne, your story really resonated with me at our initial call. And as you talked through your life, I felt many chapters of those lives, you know, growing up in Brooklyn, New York. I'm beyond thrilled that you're running. And I think that the people of New York will really feel your sentiment and your authenticity in being there for the people. We need that more than ever.
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, Miss Marilyn, you know you get one question with Dianne. So what is that question for you?
Sure. I would love to know what your plans are to help New Yorkers who feel marginalized and are marginalized reclaim the New York City that they love and they help keep running.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I was thinking about this yesterday as I was reflecting on the end of the year and 2020 and what possibilities 2020 can represent for all of us. And one of the things, you know, we dealt with so many crises in 2020. It created what I describe, what I think about as a rupture. You know, a rupture in the film or the screen that has been sort of pulled over our eyes to kind of make us feel like the conditions that we were living in were okay. And suddenly there's been this rupture in that screen, and we can see clearly. We can see clearly all of the crises and the pandemics and the issues that were impacting our communities disproportionately before COVID-19. And so when I think about that clarity, with that clarity also comes an opportunity, because once you see something, you don't have to decide that you're going to pretend you didn't see it. Right? We can decide that we've seen it clearly, and we're going to change that, and we're not going to let ourselves go back to the way things were before. So when I think about what is possible, I think about the idea that all of these inequities that we're living with, the disproportionalities and the injustice were actually created by structures and those are not things that happen by chance. Those are not things that were, you know, brought on high from aliens in outer space that created this world. We can actually choose to center and elevate our communities moving forward in such a way that we create a New York that has never existed before. Not go back to the old normal, but actually create a new normal that recognizes our collective independence, that sees and acknowledges that in the middle of this crisis in 2020, the people that kept the city running and that took care of the rest of us are the people that are the most vulnerable and the most fragile and the most on edge. And we can make a choice that moving forward, we're going to take care of each other. And we're going to prioritize people over profits. And that is what my candidacy represents, is the idea of taking on those structural and systemic issues that oppress communities, and taking those things on and transforming those things, not tinkering around the edges to throw people, you know, a little bone here and there,
exactly,
to make them and lull everybody back into a false sense of complacency and just keep people quiet. My candidacy is about, no, we're going to acknowledge all of these systemic issues. We're going to confront them. We're going to look them in the eye, and we're going to change them. And
absolutely,
that's what I want for New York City.
That's amazing. And I completely agree with you. It's time to get out of that norm that was created for the underserved people.
Yes.
Absolutely.
2021 is our year. This is it.
I love it. I love it. And I just want to tell everybody out there that, you know, cuando las puertorriqueñas say, let's get together, Stuff that starts creating, honey, that we can't even describe. And I can happily announce that Ms. Marilyn Lopez is going to be coming on as senior campaign advisor for Dianne Morales. So this is what?
Yes, I am beyond excited. I'm beyond excited. As an advocate from day one, I'm thrilled to be on board and continuing this message that is long overdue. Long overdue.
Yes, baby. I know we're gonna be talking like every day.
Absolutely. Like you, I could stay on this for hours, and I'm just thrilled that we will have someone fighting for the people of New York.
Thank you.
For the ones that help run this city.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have your support and your help.
Absolutely.
And what we're going to do together is unprecedented.
Exactly. You've already done it. So we're here to keep it moving. So everyone needs to vote for Dianne Morales.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. Mwah. Besitos, mi amor.
Besitos.
We have Mr.
Have a wonderful, happy New Year, and we'll be talking.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Oh my God, she's so wonderful. I love our Brooklyn guests. Did you love them, Dianne?
Yes, of course I love the Brooklyn guests. These powerful Latina women and my daughter. I mean, are you kidding?
Oh, amazing, amazing. All right, guys, now we are going to go to, let's see, I think that we should maybe go to Staten Island. Should we go to Staten Island?
Let's go.
Let's just go to Staten Island because, you know, in Staten Island, we are about to meet with 3 amazing, amazing folks who, I mean, I cannot wait to talk to them because Staten Island is such a beautiful, beautiful place. Hi, Miss Kathy. Hi, Katie. How are you?
Hi.
Thank you so much for being with us. Please meet Dianne Morales.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. So nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
I've been watching the live cast so far, and I just absolutely adore your energy. And I don't know if you can, I don't think you can see my shirt, but it's a quote. And yes, yes, joy. Yes.
I love that. I love that. I use that with my team all the time. When we get offline, I need to figure out where you got that from because I want one.
Well, it was a Christmas gift from my wife, so I'm sure.
I love that.
Yes. So and I feel that from your energy, and I, you know, in these sort of dark times, it feels that way. That, you know, expressing joy, you know, is the only thing that's going to keep us going, and is definitely an act of resistance. So I'm happy to spend my first day of this new year with some joyful people. So, and thank you for your interest in Staten Island. And it was lovely talking to Javier. So, and meeting Javier and the connection with my dear friend, Dr. Melendez, who you're going to meet too today. So
absolutely. And, you know, Katie, I always want to call her Kathleen because, you know, that's her professional name, but I'm like, hey, no, Reverend Dr. Katie. She's a professor in the psychology department, Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies program at CSI. So I thought it was extremely important to have her voice here with us today. So tell us, Ms. Katie, what would be like your question for Dianne Morales?
Well, Dianne, I know that, you know, you probably know that Staten Island is often seen as the forgotten borough. And I think a lot of people don't realize how incredibly diverse our borough is, because a lot of times we're stereotyped on, you know, in popular culture in a particular way. And while a lot of the things around us being like extremely racially segregated and sort of dominated by a conservative voice is true, there are a lot of people like myself and my colleagues and my neighbors and my radical social justice oriented clergy that I hang with on Staten Island that are and artists, and there's a lot of exciting things happening on Staten Island, but we definitely need the support to sort of balance the voices on Staten Island. And so I was just wondering, you know, especially too, since, you know, we were, you know, I was very much involved in what became, you know, the sort of or not re-energizing, but the energizing of the Black Lives Movement under some real, dismal consequences around the murder of Eric Garner. And I just wanted to know, like, what are your impressions of Staten Island, and what might be some ways in which you think you could reach out to Staten Island, given our struggles, not only just being separate from, the rest of the boroughs. So
yeah. No, I think that's a really good question, right? And I think, one of the things that comes to mind for me when I think about it, first of all, Staten Island is part of the city, and we have to sort of move to a different place in terms of recognizing that and acknowledging that. And I think that's really important. But one of the things I think about is, like, I'm running on this idea of elevating the voices of communities that are forgotten, right? And so there's a real natural alignment there between the communities I'm seeking to represent and the community that you're talking about, particularly because it's on Staten Island, right? And I also recognize the idea that in order for a campaign like mine to succeed, we are talking about building coalitions and building a movement of diverse, a diverse coalition and a diverse movement of voices and people from across the spectrum that have not felt like they have been seen, heard, or represented. And that sounds like exactly what you're talking about in terms of your colleagues, on Staten Island. And as someone who in the last couple of months has had several interactions, in particular with Eric Garner's mom, I understand that it's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us coming together and lifting our voices in unison against the status quo and against sort of going back to normal, so that we can move forward in a new direction. And so this is kind of an unprecedented thing that we're talking about. And we saw some of this, I think, over the last year in the movement, the surge of the movements that came together that looked more diverse than anything I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Right? And so the seeds have been planted for this. And I think it's a question of us figuring out how we sustain that, because it's exhausting, first of all, and I recognize that too. But looking forward to the potential and the opportunity and the possibilities that 2021 brings for us, continuing and sustaining that movement that I think has connects us across boroughs. And across some identities too, right? To the idea of the diverse coalition. And so I need y'all, I need y'all to stand with me, because it's going to take a lot of us to make this possible. And I'm hoping that I can count on the people of Staten Island who are ready for change.
Yes, thank you.
And
if I could just slip one, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, in terms of as mayor, what role do you see in supporting the City University of New York? Because we're under some weird ways in which we're managed, in terms of the state controlling a bunch of money and the city controlling some money. And so, what are your feelings about CUNY, and how might you move to advocate and support public education?
Yeah, so I'm advocating for the creation of a K through 16 system. I think that we need to provide free and public access to our New York residents, so that they can actually go seamlessly from K through 16. I think there's a huge role that CUNY can play in terms of career readiness for young people. As someone who did a lot of career development work in the nonprofit sector and partnered with CUNY to do that, I think there's a lot of strength there that we have underutilized and under-recognized. And I think the CUNY system needs to be a real pillar for our students. And we need to fight to make sure that we can maintain, grow, expand, and also create that K through 16 pipeline. I think that's really important.
Okay, I'm ready to help you with that too.
Yes, let's do it.
Another thing is that Katie is also part of the planning committee, of the planning folks that planned the Pride Parade in Staten Island. So I'm like, we're going to Staten Island, girl.
Yes, I'm down to Marshall out there too.
Right? I think we all have to come. Bronx, Queens, everybody, Manhattan, we all have to get on the ferry together and go for our brothers, sisters, and siblings in Staten Island, because we just do. They are brothers and sisters and siblings, period. So thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Katie, for everything, for showing up today and just spending a little bit of time with us. And again, I know that we're going to be talking soon. We're setting something up for all of us too.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Talk soon. Thanks, Javi.
Thank you. All right, guys, listen, we're still in Staten Island because so much more. I love the beautiful people that I found that, you know, that have come through me through Dr. Fran Melendez, who you'll also meet, Dianne. She's amazing. And I told her, I said, you know, who are the people who are running? And one of the people is, his name is Thomas. And Thomas is a counseling service manager at the Pride Center of Staten Island. And in addition, you know, he is maintaining his own clinical caseload of clients of the center. So he also oversees the various support groups offered at the Pride Center and supervises the team of mental health counseling and social services. So this is incredible. So definitely, guys, welcome Mr. Thomas to the conversation.
Hello.
You know,
hi, good afternoon. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's so good to meet you.
It's so great to meet you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Thomas. I love your story. You know, I got to talk. This is part of the magic of being a producer and a host, is that you actually connect with your guests in such a way. Like, we talked about our childhood. We talked about our upbringing. So tell us a little bit about how your life in Staten Island, Thomas.
So I have lived in Staten Island my entire life. I was actually adopted at 6 months old from Guatemala and into an Italian-American family, and I've lived here my entire life. 4 years ago, approximately, I started working with the Pride Center of Staten Island, and being able to work with the LGBT, TGNC community has just been one of the most incredible privileges of my life. So, yeah.
I love it. So what would be your question for Ms. Dianne Morales if she becomes the next mayor?
Well, to kind of piggyback off of what Reverend Dr. Katie mentioned earlier, is that Staten Island is often regarded as the forgotten borough. Yeah. But right now, particularly, I think that it also is encapsulated by, or as, the divided borough. You know, right now there is just so much political unrest, and, you know, for so many folks, it's personal. And I just wonder, in your role as mayor, you know, how you would hope to unify and, you know, bring folks together after such an incredibly divisive year.
Yeah, that's a great question, Thomas. I think, you know, it's actually, I think the divisiveness goes beyond Staten Island, right? I mean, when we look at like the last 4 years and what has happened in this country, I think things that were feelings and thoughts and ideas that were sort of just barely under the surface were given air and, you know, ignited further. Excuse me. Sorry about that. And, you know, and there's been a sort of culture of fear, I think, also that has been fueled by the last couple of years. And, you know, I think we need to change the discourse, right? We need to, one of the things I feel like, and I've mentioned this earlier, is like that the last 10 months have made, to me, the last 10 months have made it really clear that actually we're like inextricably linked. There's an interdependence in our just being as a society, when you think about, you know, the essential workers, the frontline workers, the healthcare workers, everybody who we were calling heroes in the middle of the summer, you know, pounding, you know, pots and pans, but like, that's great. And also, like, there are some substantive changes that we can make to really honor those people and to really, you know, elevate those people and to really kind of respect those people. And part of that means acknowledging that, like, you know, our society and our city can, the greatness of our society can actually be measured by the conditions of our most vulnerable. Right? And the idea that if we take care of our most vulnerable, we actually all benefit. It is not a zero-sum game. It is not an either or. It's a both and. And I think changing the narrative and changing the dialogue from this sort of like abrasive, confrontational kind of like thing. And although I have to say, there's a lot of reason for some of that anger, especially from the historically marginalized communities. There's a lot of reason for that. It's valid, and also we are inextricably linked. And so I think really beginning to change that conversation and frame it in such a way that speaks to the well-being and the benefit of all, because it's not me or you, it's me and you, I think is a critical step. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time, especially to move forward from where we've come, because we've hit sort of an unprecedented low, I think. But I do think, I believe that it's possible. I believe that there is a paradigm that we can create, that we can build, that we can own, where everybody actually has access to what they need to live in dignity and live well. But that's just not been how we've been taught, right? It's always been taught as like, there's a certain amount of individualism, and that, if you're doing well, it's because you're taking something from me. And that's not actually the way it works. And so that would be sort of the way I would want to begin to approach that healing that is needed.
I love
Thank
that.
you so
That's
much.
amazing. Tommy, I know you also specialize in crisis and suicide intervention, and you've worked at Vibrant Emotional Health and the Trevor Project. What is something that you would share with Dianne, right, from like that intel of our community, like that about the mental health that they suffer mostly through COVID, right? Mostly this year, because we obviously know there's a lot that we need to discuss about LGBTQIA plus mental health. But this year specifically, right, as we move into the next year, what would you tell Dianne, like as a little bit of, listen, this is what's happening?
One of the biggest challenges that I've especially noticed in Staten Island is getting accessibility to competent psychiatric resources, or mental health resources as a whole. That seems to be kind of one of the most current challenges that I've kind of come across with the folks that I work with. And so that's something that I'm always trying to be mindful of trying to bridge those gaps as much as I can.
Yeah. Yeah, that topic hits really close to home for me. I spoke publicly a couple of weeks ago about some of the struggles that my own daughter dealt with mental health-wise, and the fact that it's about 5 years ago, I think, we spent 2 days in a bed in a hallway of an emergency room waiting, because at the time, New York City apparently only had 15 mental health beds in all of the city. And so, I feel like we had firsthand experience with the shortage of what you're talking about, of resources and supports. Coming from someone, myself as being someone, I consider myself privileged, and I have networks and access and all of that stuff, right? And I'm a fierce advocate. I can't imagine what that would be like for anybody that had anything less. And even for me, it was such an overwhelming struggle and challenge and drain. And so, it's really important to me for us to think about how we move forward. I don't think we're talking enough about the impact of COVID-19 and the year that we've just had on mental health, on people's mental health. There's a lot of focus on the economic recovery, and I think that's important, obviously. But we also need to really be thinking about how it is that we're going to support our residents from a mental health perspective, because even people that before the pandemic were in the best of mental health conditions, it's taken a toll on all of us. And I think it's really, really important for us to be thinking about how we're going to support that, and how we use peer models, and how we use all sorts of different models in order to make that happen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Thomas, for coming through, taking the time through. It was awesome. And I know we'll be in touch soon, all right?
Yes, we will. Thank you so much. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Love Thomas, right? So sweet. Just everybody's so sweet. I love. So next we have Dr. Fra Melendez, who is a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of New York. Dr. Melendez has extensive and groundbreaking clinical experience working with adults and children infected and affected with HIV and AIDS. Her career has put her in the forefront of HIV and AIDS mental health issues, and her work has been the focus of a New York Times article, a documentary, and several media interviews, because, you know, she's bad like that. So everybody, welcome the fabulous Dr. Fra Melendez to the conversation. Hi, Dr.
Hi.
Hi.
Happy New Year. Hi, Dianne.
New Year.
It's so exciting to be here. Thank you, Javier, for inviting me in.
Thank
It's
you.
a pleasure to meet you, Dianne. And so it's funny, the people before me really filled a lot of the questions I had, because Staten Island is unique on so many levels for being known as the forgotten borough.
Yeah.
Not the borough of parks that it is. It's a beautiful place, but also divided, and more so now in this last year that the disparities have come to the surface.
Right.
They're in our face, and you talked about that before. We can't deny it. We've been a borough that's been affected by, you know, the murder of Eric Garner. So instead of piggybacking, my question is, when you become mayor, positive thinking, right? How are we going to, when we think about mental health, that's an issue, and the police, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we reimagine the police department.
Yeah.
How do we do this? Because one of the things I think that's lacking is, and I don't want to put it on them, they don't have the mental health training, right?
Yeah.
How do you reimagine it, that when they get a call, what would that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've talked about that a lot, because I think one of the things that we have to do is to reclaim and redefine the meaning of public safety. I think that for too long, public safety and policing have been equated. And the reality of it is that that's not true. The reality of it is that when you close your eyes and you envision a safe community, you don't see a community that is heavily policed. You see a community that has access to resources, that is rich in programs and supports and services. And that's what we need to think about. And that's how we need to sort of move towards a new vision of public safety. But to your point, right, from what I understand, over 80% of the calls that the NYPD responds to are actually not even crimes to begin with.
Correct.
They're social issues. They're issues of homelessness, of mental health, of substance abuse. And the reality of it is that our police force is neither trained nor really interested in responding to those issues.
Right.
That's not what they signed up for. So my proposal has been that we unburden them from having to deal with and respond to those issues, that we reallocate the proportion of funding that is currently being used to address those issues. So if you think about it, if it's over 80% of the calls, then that's not an insignificant percentage of the budget. And that needs to be reallocated and invested in communities to create the supports and services and programs that communities need, so that we are giving people in the community the access to the resources that they need to be safe, right? And so one of the things I've called for is the creation of what we've called for now a community first responders department. Then that would be a department that would be staffed by people who are trained in intervention, de-escalation, and then are able to connect people to the resources that they need, so that a homeless person is being connected to shelter, so that someone with mental health issues is being connected to services, right? And I think that that's how we begin to reclaim public safety in the communities that are most challenged right now. And so that's, I just think that we need to move away from this idea of having a man with a gun respond to a situation of the homeless woman on the corner, because he shouldn't be there, and that doesn't help her, and it, you know, often is not safe for her. And so that's part of what I have called for in terms of reimagining how we keep our communities safe.
Right, because I think that you talked about everything is connected, right? And stigma is one of them, and people are afraid of the mentally ill, right?
Yep.
And that's my thing. I always think about when there's a call that you have a mental health professional there, not someone that gets a peer. You know, a lot of misnomers are they have peer educators, and no disrespect, to go to the job of someone that should be trained appropriately to do an intervention.
Right.
And that's what I imagine. That you're going to have two people coming into the call, the specialist and the officer, to de-escalate and not kill.
Right.
So many mentally ill people have been killed because they're coming toward you with a hammer. It's a mental health issue. Because I think about it, I was in the Bellevue psychiatric ward. No one was ever killed in the psychiatric ward, but they're coming in violent, escalated, dangerous, but no one is murdered.
Right, and there's
So
nobody.
why is that?
I would also guess that there's nobody on the staff at Bellevue that is an armed police officer generally.
No, you have the house police, but you know it's really us. We were taking care of them. The staff was taking care of them, and no one was ever killed.
Right.
And you know, Bellevue's known. Everybody goes to Bellevue, and so it's how do we reimagine that? Because in all fairness to police officers, they're going in to do 80% of calls that they're not trained to do.
They're not. No.
Right.
I know, Ms. Dr. Fran, I know that you also introduced long and short-term therapy to at-risk populations that have traditionally refused mental health services, and that's a lot of our people, right? People of color, period, right? So, what would you say is a way for Dianne to kind of keep that in the back of her head as she moves forward with her mental health plans?
I think that when you talk about institutional racism, you know, what we internalize as a people, right? Trust is huge. And so if you think of the Tuskegee experiment or the Latinas in Puerto Rico who were sterilized without knowing, that history makes it difficult to trust. So if you're thinking of the pandemic and they're talking about the vaccine, how people are going to hesitate taking their vaccine because you don't trust the system. You know, it's a thing of if the system that you're supposed to trust is a system you don't trust, how do you engage, right? And I think is really being in, you know, I think about Staten Island. We have 2 private hospitals. That's it. That's it. There is no public hospital on the island. You know, one is rated 28 out of, you know, top hospitals, and the other one is not rated so well. So what does that say? You know, that we have to leave the island to get adequate care, to get decent psychiatric services. And I think Thomas talked about the gap in, if I have to refer someone for an evaluation for psychiatric services, I'm like, okay, but it's limited.
Yeah.
It's limited. You know, you know, there's access to care. You know, I'm on a project, and I'll just give a plug for the project. I'm on the Staten Island Equity Project, where it's going to be about a year where we're really looking at the island, and we're even looking at transportation, right? We have one train that runs across the island, and how does that impact access to care if you live on the other side, right?
Right.
You know, we're looking at, you know, where all the clinics are for mental health services. You know, everything is clustered in certain areas. You know, it's a complicated, and you said it, it's going to take a long time. It's in our face.
Yeah.
It's never going to go back, hopefully, to what it was, and how do we make it better? And I think it's how do we engage our communities and rebuild the trust. And I think this last administration broke that in a way that it's going to take a long time to come back.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's where you talk about engagement, community. How do we make Staten Island inclusive as part of New York City versus like, oh yeah, you know, I grew up in Brooklyn, and I'll say it, I'm always a Brooklyn person, and I always say, oh, what's the 5th borough? Wait a minute, I got Brooklyn. I'm like, oh oh, wait a minute, Staten Island? And so it's kind of, throughout, it's like we forget that we are, and people will say, I just drive through. We're one of the, one of the boroughs. It's a beautiful borough.
Yeah.
I love where I live. Even with all the ugly stuff, I don't want to live anywhere else. And so I want to participate in being inclusive and being, part of it. So I'm excited about your candidacy and the run, and hopefully we'll be able to help you do that.
I love it.
Exactly. I love it. That's exactly what we need, Dr. Fran. Thank you so much. And again, for leading us in the right direction of the amazing folks that we spoke to in Staten Island, and for everything you do day in and day out, sweetheart. Thank you so much.
And just see, we've got great folks on Staten Island.
Yes, we do. Felicidades. Happy
Thank you.
I love Dr. Fran. So full of knowledge. All right, guys, now we are going to go to one of the fiercest entertainers that I've seen in such a long time, because, when we think of drag, we kind of almost think drag one way, but this drag queen has been kind of creating her own way, and I love it. Her name is Kiki Bolchange, and I know, right? She has all the Broadway pizzazz you'd expect from, as you say, an off-Broadway budget.
I love me some Kiki.
We love Kiki. Yeah, she is everything. She is so funny, and we love that she's here. She's originally from Alabama, making her way into New York, so we need her voice. She's a New Yorker. So listen, we're going to talk to her when we get to the borough of Manhattan, but right now I want you guys to enjoy what she has put together for us, because it is hysterical. Get ready to laugh. All right, guys, hit it.
Hit it.
I tried to get waxed. Yeah, I tried waxing for the first time. Yeah, and part of it was a bikini wax. Yeah, so I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. I'll try, And she told me, she said, Juan, it's gonna hurt a little bit. And I was like, I'm tough. I got that shit. So she put the wax on there and put the tape on there, and I smacked the shit out of her. You just sit up in your house and snatch hair off of people all day. And then she starts smacking it. I'm like, ow, 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 bitch, ow, what are you doing? She's like, oh, that takes the sting away. I was like, no, that fucking hurts. How would you like it if I stabbed you and then stuck my finger in the hole? Ooh, don't that feel better? I had to let her finish, I had to let her get her to even that shit out. I couldn't have like one side waxed and one side razor. That shit don't match. And then it got worse, because I thought she was finished, and then she goes, okay, now, turn over. Yeah. I was like, excuse me, she said, turn over, I gotta get the backside, I gotta get your butt. I was like, my butt? I said, oh, that won't be necessary. Nothing goes on back there. Besides, I like it to look like that, because it scares people away. Like, it won't hurt that much. I'm like, well, what the fuck? All right. A little change, why not? So I turned over. She put the wax in there and put the tape in there. Everything went white. just ripped out my asshole. I never felt pain like that before. You know, you watch those nature shows and you see the lion stalking the wildebeest, and when he makes that initial bite, it looks so painful. That's what it felt like. I pictured my asshole running across the Serengeti. I was like, run, asshole! Run, asshole, run! Teeth in my asshole. I got a tetanus shot when I left there. You got me feeling higher.
Kiki, oh my God, I'm literally dying laughing. Like this. She is so
hilarious.
How funny is she? And so is with Wanda Sykes mixed in.
I know, and Wanda Sykes is one of my favorites too, so I love that she did that.
Yes, representing the LGBTQI community all the way. All right, guys, now we are going to be heading out to Queens, New York. And Queens, I've lived in Queens, and Queens is amazing. Queens is a home for
I lived in Queens too.
Did you?
I did for like a hot second, but yeah.
Well, I love Queens because there's so much community. There's everything. If you want to eat any kind of food, you're going to go to Queens and have an amazing time because it's literally like a block away from any other country, which is really amazing. And we're going to start in Queens with two amazing folks because I remember being in Queens, being a Latino, gay man coming up in Queens, and they created a home. They created an environment, a safe environment, right, Dianne? Like we talked about creating a safe environment for the community. Well, JR and Cynthia Russo did just that. I mean, literally, we would come on and we would go out. You always got, you know, dressed. You got dressed to go to class. You start fucking around, looking all lucky. So, and then you come in and it was, you know, again, magic, full of everyone in our community. To Cynthia and JR, meet Dianne Morales.
Hi.
Happy New Year. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Happy New Year. Thanks so much for being here. It's an honor.
Thank you, Javier. Thank you so much.
Happy New
for
Year,
thinking of
Dianne.
us.
Welcome.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Hi, Javier. How are you?
How are you, JR? See, JR used to let me in, so I was like, you can come in. You can definitely be.
And you know, you are aware that we share the same name, right?
Ya tú sabes, tocayo. Well, listen, I want to get started because, again, Queens is so important to all of us, as all of our, you know, Boras are. But I know that a lot of your work that you've done there, promoting, I know you own a restaurant in Queens. I know that, Cynthia, you're doing promotion everywhere around, you know, the city and Queens. So let's start with your questions.
I'm hearing a little noise in the background. Do you hear this noise? Like a ticking sound.
Maybe it's a little bit of Cynthia moving her little computer. Can we hear it? All right, Cynthia, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Beautiful. All right, so why don't we start with Cynthia? Cynthia, why don't we start with you giving us a question to Ms. Dianne Morales?
Sure thing. So when Javier approached me and talked to me about you, I, of course, did my research and discovered that you were a mom with fantastic academic credentials. My touche to that, all kudos to you regarding that. I'm a mom as well. I have 24-year-old twins, boy-girl twins. And always in my promotional profile in the city, I always like to give back something to the community. So I made it a standard that every year at my birthday, at my events, which of course we missed this year because of COVID, I always do something. either for the children or for the homeless. So this year, because I didn't have an event, I gathered together some of my closest friends. I started a non-for-profit about a year ago with a couple of my friends called I Am My Sister's Keeper. So what we did was we hit the streets. Between us and some family members and friends, we raised about $2,000 almost. And we went on Amazon and we bought tons and tons of stuff for the homeless. So we hit Port Authority and we hit Penn Station and we hit the Washington Square Park and Union Square and the East Village and gave out tons and tons of stuff. The homeless situation to me, especially regarding children, breaks my heart. And as you know, there are probably about 60,000 people in New York City that are in shelters right now. And probably 20,000 of them are children. So my question to you is twofold, if I may do that with your permission. So I'm asking you, part A of my question is, what is your stance on what your plan is for the terrible, as you know, homeless situation, which is even exacerbated by COVID? Like, what are you thinking in terms of our homeless situation?
Okay. So you said two parts. So I was waiting for the second part. So I'm going to start off by saying this. I've made it very clear that a key sort of pillar of my platform is housing as a human right. I believe that everybody has the right to stable housing, and that, you know, there are no single issue struggles because there's no single issue people, right? So you can't separate housing from safety, from public safety or public health. And as you know, as you mentioned, the issue, the public health crisis that we've been in has exacerbated actually the previously existing housing crisis. It's just made it worse. It's not like the current crisis, you know, just sprung up as a result of COVID-19. I also was in my previous life operated shelters for the homeless, and I got to tell you that, you know, that system actually is not set up the way it needs to be either. It's really kind of just like a revolving door, because we don't do anything to help them actually obtain permanent and stable housing that they can actually
once they leave, they're back out on the street.
Yeah, I mean, or they're back in the system,
Domino
right?
theory, yeah.
And so, you know, I think there's a lot of things that we need to do in the housing sector in New York City to make it possible for everybody to have access to housing. You know, from the sort of immediate crisis perspective, I think we need to look at repurposing all the vacant spaces, commercial spaces that have, you know, come to be.
That's great. That's great. That's great.
I think we need to be thinking about, you know, many of the hotel rooms that are sitting empty and how we access those spaces to house the homeless. On the longer term front, I think we need to be looking at changing the taxing structure for luxury developers that hold onto vacant luxury apartments for years because they get tax breaks as a result of that. I think we need to be pushing the state to implement a pied-à-terre tax for people who, you know, buy places in New York City as their own sort of tax shelter, but really don't live here. I think we need to fundamentally transform the housing model, which right now is centered on how developers can profit from building housing. And I think we need to move towards, you know, increased public housing, increased social housing, community land trusts, ways to create pathways to access to ownership with tenants, rent control. I mean, there's just so much that we can do to transform the current housing system that would center people and community first, and address not just the housing, the homelessness crisis, but the affordability crisis as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. My part B.
Yeah.
So right now, statistically, probably 1/3 or maybe a little bit more of the kids in our city that are in foster care, basically 1/3 of them identify as LGBTQ.
Mm-hmm.
What my question is for the most part, they are not placed by the foster care system in private homes, in residences with a nuclear family. They are mostly sent to group homes and group residences, which to me doesn't give them a sense that they permanently will belong anywhere. So they leave. They go back on the streets. The residences are not safe. There's a lot of infighting. There's a lot of stealing. It's a horrible situation for them, which causes depression and, of course, transcends to suicide. So my question to you is basically not what can you do about it, because it's a lot more involved in that, but is it a preconceived dictate that those kids that identify as LGBTQ, is it a preconceived dictate that they don't get placed in private nuclear families by these foster agencies? Is that something that you could look at? Because maybe say I wanted to have a foster child, you know, most people want little children. They don't want an 11 or 12 or 13-year-old. So is this something that the foster care system is just automatically placed, especially if they identify as LGBTQ? Do they automatically just put them in those residences, or do they even try to get them into a family?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question, and we can spend 2 hours talking just about that. But I'm gonna give you some quick thoughts that I have on that. One is, I actually my first job out of college was as a caseworker in the foster care system, and I'll start off by saying that system is broken. Just whether you're LGBT or not, that system is just broken. I'll also say that in my work as the executive director at The Door, many years ago, I did a lot to increase and expand programming for LGBTQ youth. And yes, it's true that a lot of them get placed in these group homes. It's also true that a lot of the ones that get placed in families with nuclear families, as you describe, are also feel unsafe and unwelcome because of their gender, because of their sexuality, right? And so many of them actually end up running away, right? So the count in the system isn't accurate because we're not always keeping track of the ones that have run away.
Because a lot of them are off the grid.
Right, exactly. Right. And so when I was at The Door, I did a lot to create programming to bring, in particular, the runaway and homeless LGBTQ youth into the center, because we wanted to create a safe space for them, and then recognize that by virtue of creating that safe space and that trust and that relationship, that then we could work to connect them to other programs and services. The sort of headline answer, I think, to your question, though, is that for our young LGBT youth who end up in care for whatever reason, if we want to place them in homes with nuclear families, we have to do better at making sure that the families that they're being placed with are welcoming, are receptive, are nurturing of their gender identity, their sexuality identity, in ways that we're not currently doing, and the solution is more towards being focused on putting them in environments that accept, recognize, and celebrate who they are, whether that's a group setting or an individual home setting. That really, the focus really has to be about that level of acceptance and celebration first.
That's what I think as well.
Yeah.
My question was just, I wondered, was it deliberate,
Yeah, I think there is some thought that's given to the idea of keeping them safe, and sometimes there is the thinking that in a group setting it might be safer than isolating them at home, in a home where they may or may not be accepted. But the groups, the group homes have their own set of challenges as well.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Those are awesome questions. All right, Mr. JR, talk to us.
Well, hello, how are you, Diane? Welcome,
Hi.
Welcome to the panel. Welcome to what's going on here in New York, this mess that you're going to walk into. But hopefully you get to make some drastic changes for us, and I hope that we're here to help you and assist you throughout the journey.
Thank you.
Questions that I have, like, what can we do to not only better the LGBT community, but what's happening in New York, period? I'm in Queens. I'm not sure if you know my background, but I did nightlife for many years, over 35 years. I did straight clubs through the half journey of the first half of my journey, and then gay clubs through the second half of my journey. With that said, I also work with a recording artist. I don't know if you're familiar with the freestyle genre, but so I've seen a lot of diversity and different things have changed over this year particularly, but in New York overall, from the early 80s to current, how can we better the situation with housing, which I heard you touch already with Cynthia, with these astronomical rents, that they are chasing people away. They're not helping people because when you constitute $2,500, $4,000 for an apartment that years ago was $800, that means you have to work double that.
Yeah.
Same thing that goes with the minimum wage. I know I'm throwing it all over the place, but there's a lot of like little topics that we can cover. And you probably don't have all the answers right now, but things that have to be covered during time. For small businesses, when you do these minimum wages that are $15 an hour, you can no longer sell a sandwich in my place like for $5 anymore. Now you have to up it to $8, $9, and people don't understand those drastic things. So what can we do to better the economic status that's going to change things for all parties, straight, gay, bisexual, everything in between that needs this assistance? What I did back in the days was I unified the club and I brought it to be a one house for all, which Cynthia can tell you when I asked her to join the board with me. She was like confused on why I wanted to bring boys and girls together. But I figured, listen, we're Latinos, number one, so we have enough racism that we have to deal with already to begin with as a person of color. And then on top of that, the boys wanted to be with the boys, the girls want to be with the girls. We're segregating. That's again going back to the early 50s and 40s of segregation. We're supposed to unify and make this work together. These are just some topics that, like I said, you may not have the answer now, but I think that we should definitely take notes on and all collectively work on this, because these are things that are going to bring back New York to what the status that it was.
Yeah. So you're right. I don't have all the answers, but there's a couple things that you said that I want to respond to. One is I love that you said the collective, work on it collectively, right? Because the fundamental, one of the key principles of my campaign is that I am running to elevate the voices of so many communities that have historically not really had a seat at the table, not really been represented. And so part of that for me is the idea of co-creating the solutions to the challenges that our communities face, because I do believe that those that are closest to the challenges are closest to the solutions, right? And I'm not operating as like, I'm gonna be the hero, I'm gonna be the savior, I have all the answers, just elect me and I'll take care of everything. I'm running on the idea of, I want to raise your voice because I know you've been doing this work for a long time. Work with me to figure out how to address these challenges in the ways that benefit our communities, right? So that's the first thing. And then, to some of the economic issues that you raised, I think about it in two ways. The first is like, what do we need to do right now to help people survive this pandemic, right? And part of that means providing the kind of economic relief that people need to make it, right? Because you can't on the one hand say to people, we need you to stay home so that we can control the numbers, but at the same time, not provide them with any kind of economic support so that they can, maintain the roof over their head and take care of their families. So the first thing we have to do is to provide economic relief to people. We've been doing this kind of, excuse my French, half-ass measures to control the current conditions, right? When in the beginning, if we had just said, guess what? We're gonna shut the city down for 6 months and we're gonna take care of you for 6 months, right? We would be in a much different position right now.
Oh, no question about that.
Lives would have been saved. The COVID rates would be different. And we would be in the beginning process of beginning to think about how we move forward, right? Instead, it's been like stop, start. And like, we're going to open things up again until the rates get high. And then we'll shut down. We'll open. And it's kind of, it's just not been, we haven't had the long-term idea it's been kind of like trying to find the short fix, right? The quick fix, and really kind of trying to, as if there's a shortcut to saving human lives. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I will say is that I really think, when we talk about economic recovery in particular, when we hear New York City leaders talk about it, the focus is on big businesses and corporations, and we need those people. And, if they leave the city, then we're doomed. But the reality of it is that 50% of the New York City workforce is employed by small and mid-sized businesses. And so if we made a decision that we're going to prioritize those companies, those small mom and pop, local, small and mid-size, we're going to get 50% of the population back to work. We're going to contribute to local business owners, local people beginning to build back some level of wealth, and we're going to contribute to the economic recovery by giving people locally jobs with local business owners, right? And so it goes it's just about like, what do we want to prioritize? Do we want to prioritize the big business, or do we want to prioritize the people from the neighborhood?
Well, that's what they've sort of done with prioritizing. I hate to say it because Amazon has a lot of beautiful things and accessibility is amazing. But with that said, Amazon has killed the entire retail market, at least of this city, which is what we live on. You can go up and down Steinway Street, where my family's restaurant, I opened up a restaurant 21 years ago for my mother. And there's over 50 empty locations at this time and day is absurd, and when you see places like a Wendy's, a Taco Bell closed, there's a real economic, situation going on here that they are suffering because big chains don't close. I live in Glendale, a Burger King closed last week, 2 7-Elevens closed. There's a real economic crisis going on here.
Well, and here's the other thing. Amazon has killed small businesses. They've also killed people.
Oh yeah, there's no question about that.
Because they haven't protected their workers.
No.
Right. So it's a double whammy when you think about it that way, right? When you think about Chris Smalls, who the Amazon whistleblower from the spring, who came out and publicly to talk about how they were not providing the protections to their workers in the warehouses. And the rates of those workers that have died, as a result of exposure, there's a lot of problems with that model, right? And so
how do we legislate that though to control it? Because they've become the mafia of the retail market in all essence of the word.
Right.
So how do we control that where we have the ability to say you can only do X amount, or you could not have all the products, because if not, we're not going to have any retail stores. Like, what do you do with all the retail spaces available in New York? What do you do with all these office spaces that are going to become dwellings in the future? Because a smart business owner is not going to sit here and pay $2 million of office rent a year, or a month for that matter, when we've all been working from home all this time.
Right, that's right.
Well, I haven't, because I have a restaurant, so I'm here since COVID, and you can't cook from home and deliver from home.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is a way to legislate and create policy that begins to tip the scales, right? If we make a decision as a city that we're going to provide the tax incentives and the small and low interest loans, the no and low interest loans, and the tax refunds to the small and mid-sized businesses, that's how we actually begin. We begin to invest, right? And that's how you begin to counter that. We make choices about who gets the tax breaks and who gets the incentives and that kind of thing. Those are choices. That's not something that comes down from on high that like we have no power in. We get to make those decisions. And we need to make the decision that we are going to prioritize our people, our communities, over the big box corporations. And I do think that is something that I directly as mayor would have control over. And that's a start.
Yeah.
That's great. Another quick subject that I'd like to touch is, like, as a mayor for this city, what would you do in handling the health department that goes and visits restaurants like this one that they become a nuisance? I'm going to give you an example. Since COVID has been here, has happened, in the last 4 weeks, I've had 6 visits just to check on safety guidelines. Understandable. There's nobody eating in the restaurant. Why am I getting 2 visits in one day? 2 days later, another 2 visits. it's like the inspectors are clearly telling me that the current mayor is sending them out just to not keep them in an office, which is senseless because you're harassing people, you're intimidating them, you're making them feel like they should shake in their pants as soon as they see a shield, because they don't come in here friendly. They're very aggressive.
I know.
One guy came in here, the first inspector that came in here came and says to me, "You need to have hand sanitizer in the restroom." I was like, wait a minute, we've been in business 21 years, and as long as you have antibacterial soap and paper towels, that's what they require. You don't have to have hand sanitizer in the bathroom. In fact, another supervisor came afterwards and says, no, you don't have to. So no one's being trained adequately. They're just being shoved into the market, into the streets, and saying, go do what you got to do, peg them, give them a violation, close them down, whatever it is you have to do, just make it happen. And, that's making everyone suffer all along because, I don't only employ straights. I employ great gay people. We cook for all people. We fed the front lines during this COVID time. So there's a lot of things that these people affect indirectly. They don't even realize it. And they don't act like human beings.
Yeah.
They act like soldiers that want to kill you.
Yeah.
Which is terrible.
Yeah.
Some of the police officers are great. I have a lot of police officer friends, but they as well do the same thing. They're very aggressive to the humankind. Like if they're not a human being when they take their uniform off.
Yep.
I always say we go to the bathroom the same way, we bleed the same way, we breathe the same way, we pump up and down. So why are we being treated differently or unequally? Forget about the race thing, about the Latino, Black, anything like that. You're a human being. Why are you being treated this way?
Right. Right. Those are all valid points.
Systemic racism, economic racism, there's so much that we're definitely going to we have to handle as a community. And I know you two have been doing your job for decades. So that's why when I thought about Queens, the first people that came to mind were you guys, and obviously shout out to Dot because we love Dot, and Dot is friends with Cynthia, and that's how this all got connected. And I was just like, these are the folks that need to be here because they are the real heroes. They are the ones on the street. Diaz, how is Coro?
Coro is wonderful. He just did a virtual thing for New Year's Eve. He's doing great. We're recording. We just did a reggaeton record. Unfortunately, we're not gigging like we're supposed to be, but we're blessed to be breathing and we're okay. All of us are healthy, but that's what matters.
Beautiful. Well, let him know that he's going to be coming on my show because he's a hero. So
I will definitely get him on show, and as soon as Dianne is ready to start launching some events and stuff, Cynthia and I would be honored to help you out with any events with recording artists. To drag queens, if you want a go-go dancer, whatever you want, we'll get it.
We got it. We got it.
Thank you both so much.
It was a pleasure, both of you, and Jay. It was great to see you, honey. Anything that you need from us, let us know. I talked to Javier. I said that I can definitely get us a fundraiser.
Yeah.
Space at Stonewall.
If
so
you ever want some
one of my partners that I do my women's events with is one of the owners. So down the road, we got that cooking. Have a great and happy and healthy new year.
Love it. Let's make 2021 our year.
That's the deal. Hopefully.
Thank you for everything. I'm going to pray and I'm going to be pushing for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, JR. Oh my God, that was awesome. There were so many points that we needed to talk about, and they got through them. I love it.
They did.
All right, guys. Next, another fierce queens, honey, because we in Queens, so we gotta get a fierce queens. And her name is Mariah Balenciaga, honey. She's a drag queen and a television personality, and she is best known for competing on the 3rd season of RuPaul's Drag Race and the 5th season also of RuPaul's Drag Race All Star. So everyone, please welcome the fierce, the only one, Ms. Mariah Balenciaga. How are you?
Hi, love. I am wonderful. I am wonderful. I am still breathing. I am seeing a new year, which I'm grateful for.
Yes.
So, how are you, Miss Dianne?
Go ahead, Dianne.
No, I was just, it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Happy New Year. It's great to be here with you. Thank you.
I thank you so
much. The pleasure is all mine.
Yeah, I thank you so much, Mariah, just, because I know that personally you've been going through something that is really, really, hit home, and we've had conversations. And I just want to say thank you for being here because I know that you really care about the people, which is why you're here. So talk to us a little bit. Talk to Ms. Dianne, and what would be your question for the next mayor of New York?
Miss Dianne, this year I'm going to try not to, because, you know, when we start talking about things, we become really passionate about it. So I'm going to try to kind of keep it as level-headed as possible. But this past year across the country, we've seen with the protests, the civil unrest, and what this current administration has done to continue to ensure the divisiveness of this country. We've seen the protests, but the ugly side of it is we've seen them the protests turn ugly, and from my side looking in, a lot of it seems like it's escalated and agitated on the side of the police. And historically, we know for a fact that now history has told us and shown us and proven it that the police have a history of agitating protests, and then they come riots because of how the protesters are treated. And we know when people are out protesting and in the streets and marching, they're at a boiling point already. And we've seen this year a lot of protests in every city across the country, every state. But what is disturbing is the fact of how police treat different protest marching organizations like Black Lives Matter, different organizations protesting of color versus how they treat the Proud Boys, and, you know, people showing up to state buildings, community buildings with rifles and assault rifles, and actually bombarding into government property. The consequences of those actions are not nearly as severe as the ones of people peacefully protesting.
Yep.
So my get into my question is, when police violate the people's right to not only protest but violate them physically, what is going to be the accountability and transparency going forward? Because if we want to trust police on the ground, that first community level of authority, like, there has to be that trust is built, and taking a picture with a kid with a lollipop is no longer doing it. And you know, and people are a lot smarter and have a lot more access to events happening and a lot more access to records. And we know that these cops, the police officers, are not being held accountable. There's no follow-up on their complaints. And what can you do, or what do you think the proper or an aggressive protocol would be to counteract the actions and the history of that type of police on citizen violence?
Sure. So first off, let me just say, Mariah, that no need for you to check your passion, because our emotions around these issues are totally justified. And I myself am guilty of getting a little heated when I talk about this in particular. So I'm not going to make the same promise, and I don't think you need to either. I will say this also, you know, I have talked publicly several times about the racial profiling that my son has been subjected to, and watching in horror at the very first George Floyd protest in May, as first both of my kids got pepper sprayed, and then as my children and I got kettled by police officers in riot gear, and one of them started to assault my son. So, you know, I share that only to say that, you know, my response to this is not theoretical. It's not hypothetical. It is real and lived. I have, you know, I talked a little while ago about how I think we need to change policing to begin with. But to your question, which is, I think, much more pointed about accountability, you know, police need to be held accountable for their behavior. And there's a lot of different ways that could look like. One is the idea of creating restructuring the Civilian Complaint Review Board so that it actually has authority, disciplinary authority over the police, rather than just kind of making recommendations that then get, you know, kicked over to the chief of police, who, you know, absolves his people from all accusations to begin with, right? That's highly problematic. The other thing is the idea of creating an independent prosecutor's office or investigation office. Right now, the way it works is that essentially the same sort of DAs that rely on the police to provide them evidence for other cases are the ones that are responsible for those kinds of things. And so it's kind of like, it's a conflict of interest, right? If I rely on you to do my job on a regular basis, but then I also have to be the one to do the investigation of you, like, you know, there's a conflict of interest there. So the idea of creating something independent. The other thing we've talked about is the idea of police being individually held accountable, right? Like if it's gonna hit you in your pocket from an economic perspective, you're gonna think twice about it, right? Or you're gonna feel the consequences, right? So there are things that we need to put in place. We have to get rid of impunity, right? The fact that they get to so often act without any kind of consequence, that has to be the first thing to go.
Yeah.
And we really have to build a system of accountability where they're being charged and held accountable like anybody else is, right? Like they are not, they should not be immune to bearing the consequences of their actions when they are disproportionately wielding their power on some people and not others, right? And we know for a fact that a Black person could be doing X behavior and a white person could be doing X behavior, the same exact behavior, and the response and the impact on the Black person is going to be severely, different and much more negative than the one with the white person, right? And that's a deeply rooted systemic problem, which is why, dealing with the sort of consequences in terms of how we hold them accountable is one important thing, but that's kind of like after the damage has been done, right? We also have to address things on the front end so that there is much less damage being done to our communities, so that there is no damage being done to our communities in this kind of inequitable and unjust way.
Amazing.
Yes, ma'am. Because the thing, a lot of times, we get the rationale that the cops feared for their life. Well, if it's that easy to rattle you, you are in the wrong line of work. And I think that it's like if a Black man scares you more than a white man of the same size and build, it's like you should not be in that, or you should look at yourself and know that you shouldn't be in a public service position. With that being said, I'm going to move on to kind of my next question is, do you think that one of the solutions could possibly be requiring longer training for a police officer? Because I know in some places that you have to have longer required hours of training and education to be a beautician than you have to be a police officer holding a gun.
Yeah. So I'm not opposed to that. Longer training, making them have to be older, making them have to live in the communities those are all, I think, valid things to take into account. But to me, quite frankly, it feels a little bit like superficial, like tinkering around the edges, because I think that we really have to get to the root, the structural and systemic issues. Like policing, the system of policing as we know it was built on the model of slave patrols. And slave patrols, there was nothing about that model that was focused necessarily on protecting the slaves. It was focused on protecting the white man's property, right? And so we can do all these things, and I don't mean to diminish them necessarily, but my point is that we actually, if we want to make the change that's going to help our communities be safe, we have to take the structure on head on. And for me, that is a priority, and that is a commitment that I make both on this campaign and in terms of my administration, that I want to deal with those structural issues. And yes, there are other things that we can do as part of that sort of package, but we have to fundamentally overhaul what policing looks like and how the role it plays in our communities and how it gets deployed. Like all of those things, we have to prioritize that
Okay. Now we also know that the I guess the documentation of violence on trans women of color uh, is on the rise drastically. And I say documentation because it's been happening for decades at a different rate than their white trans counterparts. What do you think you could do? Because a lot of them, a lot of the girls are sex workers, and a lot of them also don't feel safe again going to the police to file complaints or to if whether they've been beaten or robbed by a client or just they've been assaulted by other citizens or targeted by other citizens. It's been proven that if they go to the authorities, go to the police, there's little to nothing that's going to be done. And so I think that the disproportionate assaults and murders of trans women of color, trans people of color, period, is a direct result of people not fearing consequences of the actions. Because again, the authorities that are put in place, i.e. the police and the DAs or whoever prosecutes or pulls up charges, has failed them. Like, what do you think you could do with your administration to counterbalance that?
Sure. So I've already talked publicly about believing that we should decriminalize sex work. I think that, that just provides, the criminalization of sex work just provides a vehicle for police and the vice squad and et cetera to, disproportionately impact and, whatever that community and for people in general, to your point of people sort of feeling like they're going to get away with it because whatever. So I've called for the decriminalization of sex work. I've called for the disbanding of the vice squad. I think there have to be, there have to be consequences for people who do harm to members of our trans community. There has to be a mechanism by which our trans community can feel safe and feels like they have the right to be protected and can reach out for help and support and protection and actually get it. And that goes back to the impunity issues with the NYPD. It goes back to holding people accountable for their behaviors, whether they're NYPD or not, in terms of harming the trans community. Our people need to feel safe. Our people need to feel protected. They need to feel seen and honored. And that is, that is a critical part of what I believe. It is part of the work that I've been doing. I've been endorsed by Black Trans Nation. I think they recognize that this is an important and sort of priority issue for me. And so those are some of the things that I would do in order to make sure that we keep our people safe.
Thank you so much, Ms. Dianne. It's been such a pleasure.
Same here. Thank you so much for spending some time with us on New Year's Day.
Yes, thank you so much, Mariah.
Thank you.
To you, and we will chat soon, okay? Take care. I love Mariah. So amazing. So, she's a warrior in her culture and in her community. And now, guys, I have to talk something. Listen, Dianne, we talked about running a grassroots campaign, honey, and that does not come she said, out of the air, out of, anything. That comes through donations from all of us to help her. And right now we're going to bring our co-host, the lovely Katrina Lovelace, because she has an extremely important message for our viewers. And
that I do. That's
Miss Katrina.
Listen, we weren't able to put lipstick on a pig, but we did on an elephant. You're very welcome.
Stop.
I didn't get the memo. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. All right, so I'm just gonna say some quick few things. Thankfully, I know how to read. Thank God. So Dianne is enrolled in the New York City 821 Public Matching Funds program. This is a special program designed for candidates to be able to get money from the city after collecting a specific number of small dollar donations from New York City residents. Hopefully you guys are getting all of this because it's not going through my head, but let's do this. All right, in order to qualify, we need to raise $250,000 from at least 1,000 unique New York City donors by January 11th. So we gotta put in the work, and I know that we can do it as Latinx people, as Black and Brown people, POC, women, everybody. I know that we can do this. So if we reach that, the city will match it 8-1 and give Dianne an additional $2 million towards running for her campaign. So definitely it's something that we want to do. We want to see a Afro-Latina woman as mayor of New York City. So we have to put in the work. The good news is that we blew the donor number out of the water with 3 times as many grassroots donors as any other candidate. We are building our people power, but we need your help with the little bit to cross over the $250,000 mark. Now, if you can donate between $10 and $250, especially if you're a New York City resident, please help us. Now, if you can donate more than $250, contact me because I do need that help. I will give you my number later on. Don't you worry. If you have a 401k, cash it out. We're going to have a good old time at the Burger King, all right? But a contribution of just $10 will actually turn into $90. That is how math works, ladies and gentlemen. If we can reach it, but we cannot do it without you. So please, 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 if you find it in your hearts, help Miss Dianne Morales get into office.
That's right. Yes. Thank you, Miss Lovelace. Thank you for that. And, you know, she's going to be coming back because when we get to the Bronx, you know, she's going to come back because she has her own questions to ask Dianne. So we have to.
I do.
You know what I'm saying? All right, Miss Katrina. We'll see you in a minute.
I'll see you guys in a minute.
Now, guys, we are going to the Boogie Down Bronx. I mean, we love the Boogie Down Bronx, honey, because she is everything. God, from the Yankee Stadium to, I mean, there's so much. The Bronx Zoo, right? So many memories.
Botanical Gardens.
Yes, the Botanical Gardens. There's so much beauty. And also so much of our communities, Black and Brown communities, are in the Bronx. A lot of also immigrants are going into the Bronx, you know, migrating to the Bronx. And our first guest is going to be a daughter of immigrant parents. And she was raised to understand the benefit of a strong work ethic. Her father, William, who is Cubano, and her mother is Colombiana. Okay, so Miss Stephanie Hernandez, hi honey, how are you? Miss Natalia Fernandez is here, and you know what? She's running for borough president of the Bronx. Okay, so please meet Dianne Morales.
Well, lovely to meet you. This is, I think, the second or time that we've seen each other in Zoom. One day we have to get in the same room together, not a Zoom room. But great to see you again, and congratulations on all the leeway you've been making. You really have been showing up in this race, and I'm excited to see it. As another Latina running, trying to be the first Latina for the Bronx in the borough presidency, it really is wonderful to see you run and you know, be so strong right now. So guys, donate to her, and you can donate to me later.
Love it.
But yeah, the Bronx is a special place. It's a beautiful place, and a lot of Bronxites sometimes feel we do get, you know, the brunt of some criticism when it comes to New York City. You know, being dangerous, being also a poor borough. So one thing that I do have questions on, and I wonder how you're going to address, is the issue with homelessness and how we can get families in secure homes, permanent homes, and addressing the homeless that are living in the street that, you know, may have mental health needs.
Yep.
So I wanted to know your platform there.
Yeah, great. Thank you for the question. So one of the things, you know, a couple different things. On the immediate, I've talked about, I think we need to...
Cubano, and her mother is Colombiana. Okay, so Miss Stephanie Hernandez, hi honey, how are you? Miss Natalia Fernandez is here, and you know what? She's running for borough president of the Bronx. Okay, so please meet Dianne Morales.
Well, lovely to meet you. This is, I think, the second or time that we've seen each other in Zoom. One day we have to get in the same room together, not a Zoom room. But great to see you again, and congratulations on all the leeway you've been making. You really have been showing up in this race, and I'm excited to see it. As another Latina running, trying to be the first Latina for the Bronx in the borough presidency, it really is wonderful to see you run and you know, be so strong right now. So guys, donate to her, and you can donate to me later.
Love it.
But yeah, the Bronx is a special place. It's a beautiful place, and a lot of Bronxites sometimes feel we do get, the brunt of some criticism when it comes to New York City. Being dangerous, being also a poor borough. So one thing that I do have questions on, and I wonder how you're going to address, is the issue with homelessness and how we can get families in secure homes, permanent homes, and addressing the homeless that are living in the street that may have mental health needs.
Yep.
So I wanted to know your platform there.
Yeah, great. Thank you for the question. So one of the things, a couple different things. On the immediate, I've talked about, I think we need to repurpose a lot of the vacant spaces that have either existed pre-COVID or come into existence during COVID, whether that's storefronts or housing, I think, hotel rooms. We need to claim those spaces because we need to house everybody. I believe in housing as a human right. And I also believe that you can't manage a public health crisis or a public safety crisis if people don't have a roof over their heads. And that's where we have to start. So that's the first thing. The second thing I've talked about is the need for us to fundamentally transform the housing model right now. The way we provide housing in the city is focused on a developer-led model that prioritizes providing tax rebates, tax refunds, small to no interest loans and subsidies and those kinds of things to the developers in order to save us. I really think that the community knows what it needs and knows what it wants, and we need to sort of flip that model on its head and really focus on investing all of those dollars directly into the community first by increasing social housing, addressing and expanding public housing, community land trusts. Those kinds of things are things, creating pathways to ownership for tenants, providing more controls around rent increases and those kinds of things. I just think that we need to, the way we approach this has, the framing of how we approach this has centered and prioritized the wrong end of the deal, so to speak. And that we really need to center and prioritize the voices of our communities, how we calculate AMI. I mean, there's so many AMI for those of you who are listening, area median income, which can be skewed and thrown off so much if you're in a community that has some higher end, luxury properties. And so it doesn't end up being actually reflective of the income of the people that need the housing the most. From the affordable housing model. So I think those are all things that we need to be doing and we need to be prioritizing. But the first thing I think we need to focus on, particularly at this moment in time, is providing housing for all of our homeless. And that's a big issue for me.
Absolutely. It is as well for me. And in the Assembly, I have introduced bills to try to aid those that unfortunately do have to go into the shelter system, specifically LGBTQ youth, that at a young age, they become homeless and sometimes might need a little more time to get back on their feet. So the age right now is 21. I'm trying to make it 24 just to, help those that need the housing. But another thing I wanted to ask, well, I have a few questions, but I had a segue here that I just lost. But segueing to something else. Small businesses. The Bronx is chock full of small businesses, immigrant-owned businesses, and we know what COVID has done to many, forcing them to close doors. And some business owners are afraid they won't be able to reopen. How do you think New York City can be helpful to the small business owners that have lost their business?
Yep. So, again, this is another instance where I think we need to fundamentally transform our approach. When we talk about economic recovery, we focus a lot on big box corporations and businesses from outside in terms of saving us and bringing the city back. But the reality of it is that 50% of our New York City residents are employed by small and mid-sized businesses. And so the same sort of tax incentives, subsidies, et cetera, that we're offering the Amazons of the world to come establish their operations here, we actually need to be offering first and foremost to our local business owners, so that we're keeping our money in our, we're in our local economy and helping and contributing to those folks being able to get back on their feet and get that 50% of the workforce back to work, so that they can in turn begin to reinvest in the economy from that perspective, as opposed to, you know, focusing on the big box companies as our savior. We can look to our own, because we take care of us first.
Absolutely. And forgive me, because now in my mind, my last question just came back. But going back to the shelter issue and homelessness, many people, those that are living in the shelters, some have had horrible stories of the conditions there, their experiences there. And this is actually mostly an ask. I ask that something be done to help the shelter system clean itself up. You know, I do feel that sometimes that is a solution to someone's problems at the moment, but I've literally had constituents come to me in fear of having to go back into the shelter because of the dangers that have been in there, sometimes unsanitary conditions. Is there anything that you could say you would do to help the shelter system?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the shelter system is fundamentally flawed. As someone who operated shelters, I can tell you that it's not actually, you know, it's not run well, and it's not the solution. I mean, I understand that in the short term, we can't do away with them overnight, but we should really be focusing and prioritizing providing people with a permanent roof over their heads rather than this transitional model. And so if we actually adopt the idea of housing as a human right and housing for all, we can actually move to a place where we're not looking to bounce people around and to create these transitional options for people that in fact are not helpful, not very helpful, or feel safe at all. But we can actually move towards, let's get everybody a permanent house, a permanent place to live, a permanent roof over their head. In the meantime, I think there are things that we need to do and address in terms of the shelters, because like I said, we can't do away with them overnight. But I think the focus and the sort of plan needs to be driven by the notion of moving towards a model that provides permanent housing for everybody. We rely too much on the shelter system right now as a stopgap or as a Band-Aid. And that is just not it, you know, to the point you raised about the conditions. There's that, but then there's also just the instability, right? If we prioritize providing people with permanent housing, it's actually going to make a difference in so many different ways across the spectrum in New York City, because all social issues are inextricably linked. Again, housing, health, safety, you can't separate that. And the idea that we try to deal with these things in silos without a comprehensive strategic approach is problematic and just perpetuates the status quo.
I agree. So mental health is a big focus of mine in the Assembly. I'm a proud member of the Mental Health Committee, and I'm not sure if any questions have been discussed prior to me, but I do wonder what your approach would be or your thoughts on the current NYC Thrive program. There's been a lot of criticism on it that, hasn't really seen what help is provided. So I want to know if you plan to continue the NYC Thrive, improve it in any way, or create new goals for it?
My take on NYC Thrive as the former CEO of an anti-poverty organization in the South Bronx that was somewhat obligated to participate in the Thrive program, is that it falls very short. It's yet another thing that was sort of a good idea, but the execution of it falls short. I'm not really sure where those resources went. I know we didn't see a lot of it in the South Bronx when I was working there. I think we need to move towards a model that combines local integrated health clinics for mental health supports, builds out peer support models for mental health, increases access to trained professionals. I mean, I just think that we can't, that's another instance that felt a little bit superficial to me. It felt a little bit like, kind of like tinkering around the edges and not really getting into, more in-depth structural solutions. Particularly, I think coming out of COVID, one of the things I've been saying is that our mental health challenges across the city are going to be much more dire than anything we've seen before. And I don't see us doing anything to prepare for that. And I think we need to really, really look at that and invest in the mental health of our people and our communities, particularly low-income Black and brown folks who have, again, disproportionately borne the brunt of the crises of 2020. And already before that, I think we're disproportionately bearing the brunt of inequity and injustice in this country to begin with. So, I think we really need to focus on that and provide some actual tangible supports and interventions and not these platitudes of services.
Absolutely, and extending that to the immigrant community too, because I feel at this time, anxiety has certainly exasperated all of us, but
Absolutely.
in communities that are marginalized like that, these things can be worse. The digital divide in our community, segueing now from other things. I believe in a perfect world, the city should have free Wi-Fi. We've seen now with the kids having to be remote learning that many families were struggling having the devices, having Wi-Fi. How do you think we can fix that for New York City?
So funny. I think we can fix anything that we want to fix. I mean, if we make it a
great answer, yes, we can.
This is like, I get it that we're going to have some we're going to have a budget shortfall. And I get it. We're still the richest country in the country. We're still the richest city in the country, if not the world. We still get to decide how we spend our money. If we decide that we want to make it a priority to provide the technology and the infrastructure to every New York City resident, we can do that, right? I mean, just the same way that we decide we want to build, get the military tanks for the police department because, we really need that. We can do whatever the hell we want to do. We just have to decide that's what we're going to do. And our where we put our money has to reflect the things that we value and the things that we prioritize. We need to provide for our people, particularly in this age of COVID where we're asking families and children to do all this stuff online. We got to provide for them to be able to do that, right? It is our responsibility. It is what we're supposed to be doing. I'm sorry, I get a little heated.
I love it. I feel you, Dianne. I tell you, I feel you.
I feel like people, and not you, Natalia, but like people ask this question, like, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to do this? It's like, well, we just have to decide that's what we're going to do. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, that's the simple answer. Like to say, well, we don't have money, we have to figure it out. No, just reorganize it. That's all. We have all the resources.
Well, Natalia, we look forward to you representing your community as the 80th district, right? Is where you're representing.
The greatest 80th district, which has botanical gardens. So if you ever like to come that way, I'd love to show you around. It's a beautiful district.
I'm definitely going to get with Otis. Shout out to Otis, who's amazing in your team. And we're going to create something so we can come together and actually meet and continue our discussion. But thank you so much for stopping by. And again,
thank you so much. It's been a pleasure again, Dianne. I look forward to
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And those watching, follow me, Fernandez2021.com.
Yes, we need a Cubana, Colombiana to be running that district, honey.
Imagine
so,
City. That'd be fun.
I miss her. It's okay. We get her later. All right, guys, let's bring back Miss Katrina Lovelace because I know she has a question for Ms. Dianne Morales. And, she's from the Bronx. She's in the Bronx now. So what's up, Ms. Katrina?
Nothing much. I'm just like using these stuff from like this woman's house that I like broke into. I was like, oh, okay. So, but quickly, my question, I'm a first generation Mexican American. My parents were immigrants, but then they did the whole process of becoming a resident and then becoming a citizen. But that doesn't mean that most of my other family members they're still immigrants. And then 2016, we had a lot of statements being said by the current president of Mexicans specifically. And it kind of triggered a fight or flight reaction. And I saw that personally with my own family members where they were trying to see if they could make my mom like the official guardian if anything should have happened to them, if they get deported or anything like that. So my question would be is there anything that we could do to kind of subdue that fight or flight feeling to many immigrants that do live here in the Bronx and also all throughout all 5 boroughs of New York City?
Yeah. I mean, I think, we have to earn back that trust. I think our city administration over the last 4 years through its, through turning a blind eye to the NYPD's partnership and collusion with ICE has left many of our community members feeling vulnerable, right? Despite the rhetoric about being a sanctuary city, we haven't lived up to that promise or that expectation. And I think that there's a lot that we need to do to protect all of our residents, right? And to me, resident doesn't, that line doesn't end when someone's not documented, right? Like, if you live in New York City, you are contributing to New York City. I know that, right? And so we need to make sure that we're protecting that. And that means drawing a clear line that, the NYPD is not to collaborate with ICE under any circumstances. Drawing a clear line that ICE is not allowed in any of our public spaces, right? The court system, the hospital system, any of those places where people should be able to go to access services and supports without being, living in fear of being, grabbed and, snatched and taken away. Like, we need to really become a sanctuary city where people feel like they can trust that their government and their leadership has got their back and is protecting them. And those are things that are really important to me, because even as a Puerto Rican who is supposedly, right, we're technically citizens, right? My family members have been subjected to questioning and all kinds of things because we look a certain way. And so, that has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed in a systemic level. And we have a lot of work to do to earn back the trust, I think, of immigrant communities, because we have not done right by them, and they have been very vulnerable. The flip side of that is I want to acknowledge the activists that have been out there, right, trying to do their part in protecting and supporting and standing in solidarity with the immigrant community. But it's not been enough, because we've certainly seen, cases where parents have been ripped out of their homes, right? Or, children have been left without whatever. It's just, it's wrenching, and it's the injustice in that is infuriating. And, that is something that I'm totally ready to take that on.
Awesome. I'm so excited. And just one quick final statement. I myself have not been as political as I should be, especially I became more political in these past 4 or 5 years. And just hearing and seeing you talk today, I am super excited to help you in any way, shape, or form to get you into that mayor office, because truly, I have never heard someone speak so eloquently and just actually mean it, and just knowing that you're a single mother of 2 and just all the stuff that you've fought for and stood up for. I am truly, truly blessed, and I cannot wait to see you in the mayor's office.
I am blessed. I am blessed to have you and your support. And I really want us to spread the word. It is so, you're not the only one, right? There's been so many of us who have felt like that doesn't affect me. There's not, I'm not getting involved in that because they don't see me anyway. They don't represent me. It doesn't matter who's in office. Nothing has really changed my life, right? This is an opportunity. This is a window here that has never existed I'm 53 years old. I'm putting it out there. I'm 53 years old. Never in my life has it felt like there is such a real opportunity for us to create meaningful change. When you think about the coalitions of people, the diversity of the coalitions of people that rose up in 2020 to lift their voices against the injustice, against the death and the murder of our people, and you think about that, and you think about how it's intersecting at a point in time where we have all of these elections in New York City in 2021, we can actually make a change that we've never had an opportunity to make before. But it's going to take such a high level of organizing, strategizing, and mobilizing. And I know it's a hard time for people because everybody's suffering so much. But I stopped my life to do this because I think it's that important. But I can't get there without the support of the community. And that goes to the idea of, I know we're talking about donations and contributions, and that can cause people to stop listening because it's just such a hard thing to make the connection, right, between how making a $10 donation now can actually down the line make that difference. But the system is not set up for us, right? This $250,000 is set up as a barrier to people who come from low-income Black and brown communities. Because who can access $250,000? We know who can access that. It's not people that look like us. It's not people that come from our communities. And so it is set up as a barrier to keep us from getting there. And that is why we need to come together at this moment in time. And we need to come together. We need to get our friends to come together, $10, $20 at a time. Because when you think about getting to 250,000 at $10, $20 increments, it's gonna take a lot more of us, right? But we are doing it. We are making history already. It's not me making history, it's us making history. And we have to do that together. I'm sorry I went off on a rant, but
no,
I believe in this.
I think that's what Ms. Katrina means, is that we literally feel you when you speak, and we feel your heart, we feel your brain, we feel your emotions. I want to thank Katrina for her questions too, because she really makes us think of our immigrant population, right? Also the Afro-Mexican population, specifically, that has been erased. Literally, it was only put in the census, the last census around. So, people like Katrina are our people. These are the folks that we need to take care of. And even for the folks that don't understand with immigration, that our countries get affected and we don't even know that this government is doing something to our countries. That is the realness of things, of the media. We don't get to see things that happen outside of the United States if we don't look enough, right? So I know Mexico's USA, so we'll go back to that. But thank you, Ms. Katrina, so much. And I know you'll be coming back to ask for some more donations later. But everybody at home, donate. Dianne for NYC is so easy breezy. She has a website. It is set up because we have to come together. And that literally is those $10. You know what? We got to give it to Dianne. We have to. We can't spend it. Forget Netflix, forget whatever. Just give it to Dianne. All right, Miss Katrina. We'll see you in a few, sweetie.
All right, bye.
Bye.
All right, guys. So now we're entering Manhattan. We are in Manhattan. Are you ready to come to Manhattan, Miss Dianne? We have been everywhere.
I'm ready to come to Manhattan. Let's get there.
Okay. So listen, Manhattan, we are going to open up with the only iconic house, the House of Extravaganza, which was founded in 1982 as a part of the city's then underground ballroom scene. So house members have walked the ballroom, the runway, competing style and beauty. I've had the great opportunity to be immersed in the extravaganza experience, knowing the mother of the House of Extravaganza, Giselle, and Jose, the father of the house, and so many members. I can't even name them because there's another show, right? But I wanted to open up Manhattan in this way because I want you guys to understand that in the house, we watch Pose, right? And we're all like, yeah, it's Pose, it's everything. But there's actually a root to all of this. There is a history to all of this, which began in New York City, honey. And, extravaganzas are the first Latino house built for the movement. So check out this video so you can see a little behind the scenes from the House of Extravaganza.
I moved to New York City in 2005, and I was doing a lot of nightlife at the time. Just going out, didn't really have friends. I was making friends or hooking up with guys, but I was pretty much just going out and doing my thing. I met Princess Magnifique, and she said, I'm having like a little mini ball. Oh, you should come and check it out. There was a long runway, and it was all spotlit down the center. And she calls out the mother of the House of Extravaganza, Giselle. And Giselle came out like Giselle would, sleek, dead, like shoulder action, just model-esque walk. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, I don't know what that's all about, but I want some of that. Like, I totally see it.
So you guys, Monday is open to all, OTA. And so what are you gonna be walking?
I'm walking open to all performance.
I came in a different era. I went in just for fun, just to be myself, and just to escape a world where I was persecuted And I went there and I had fun and I felt like a goddess and I felt respected and I felt the beauty coming out of these people that were not supposed to be beautiful. I was in love with it. I fell in love with the culture. I fell in love because it was Black and Latino. It was like, almost like fuck you to the world because we are fabulous regardless of what you say and here we are. Boom, voila. You know, that's what inspired me. That's what inspired me.
My attraction to the ballroom scene came when I was about 19, 20 years old. To me, it was just the most organic, real kind of artistic community I had ever encountered. It was just amazing to me the amount of creativity that existed. And that was really the attraction for me. And then also added to that when I saw the dynamic between the members of the house and what that was like and how they all kind of came together for this common purpose.
And they were more like a family. They always traveled together wherever they were. They were very supportive of one each other. They were always like pitching in to help one another. And you're protected there. It was very important to a lot of us to be able to be who you are and artistically express yourself.
To my brothers in this community, we need to get back to protecting us motherfucking women.
It's easy to imagine that if you're a young man who's coming out, coming to his own understanding of his sexuality as a gay man, maybe there's aspects of that that you're not going to talk to your parents about. No matter how open and how understanding and how supportive they are, you may want to talk to another gay man about, what that's like, how to navigate that life, what are the ins and outs. And so there's still a lot of mentoring and nurturing in the ballroom community and the house community really allows the opportunity for that.
Yeah. So a ball usually starts typically around 10:30 at night. Usually everybody gets there by 12:31 because they arrive at very fabulous times. And then LSS starts. LSS is Legend, Stars, and Statements. Basically, it's a time to start getting people hyped up and like kind of sparking, the drama and the fierceness and everything.
Now there's something about being a statement.
You walk the ball, and then it's a process of elimination. Like you battle this person, that person battles this person, and then you get to the top tier. Whoever is at the top obviously wins a trophy. If there's money involved, usually there is, and that's pretty much a wrap.
4, 3, 2, 1. Oh yes, she's here. I was waiting. Let's go. Let's go.
I guess one of the misconceptions would be that it's all about competition, and sometimes it's forgotten that the real foundation is the family structure that we have created for ourselves. A lot of our members have been rejected by their families, and they have a place they can call home. They have people who they can call their family.
This has been like a whole beautiful experience. I have learned so much through the ballroom scene. It has given me power. It has given me strength. And it is who I am, and I love it.
The future of the ball scene, it will continue to evolve as it has evolved over the past 40, 50 years. It will take on different manifestations in different cultures around the world, but I think it will continue to thrive and to grow and to expand.
When people watch me walk a ball, I want to inspire them to really step out of their element and to really challenge themselves to do whatever it is that no one has ever attempted to do and try to find a way to execute and do it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's how it's motherfucking done.
Welcome the mother of the House of Extravaganza, Giselle Extravaganza.
Woo, qué bella. Woo.
Dianne, it's a pleasure to meet
Giselle, mi amor, meet Dianne Morales.
Dianne, how are you? First of all, I want to tell you that it's a pleasure to meet you. And once I heard that you were running and I heard a little bit of your background, I fell in love, and then I did some research, and that's it. I just fell in love. Well, you're Afro-Latina, I'm part, I'm Afro-Latina too, my mother. And so that touches my spirit, it touches my soul, and I see a lot of questions that were asked before by a lot of members. I kind of want to touch on those some of those subjects because they're very important when it comes to LGBT rights, especially in New York City, when it comes to housing, because housing is so difficult for just people in general. So it's a lot more difficult for trans individuals to get housing or to get job opportunities, which lands a lot of trans women into the workforce, which is, you know, not legal. So we're forced to do street work, a lot of us, because the job opportunities that we have are very limited. And I would like to know, since you're running for mayor, do you have any specific plan to further advance the rights of LGBT people in housing and also just in education and in the law enforcement?
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, we talked a little bit about this in terms of decriminalizing sex work, right? And doing away with the vice squad and all of those things. And I think that that's important. And I've been an advocate for that forever. I also think it's important for us to address some of the things you're talking about, right? Which is like discrimination in the workplace, discrimination in housing, which we know disproportionately impact communities of color. And then you take that down and it's, you know, then it's the trans community, and, you know, it makes it increasingly hard for people to access the things that they need to live in basic human dignity, right? And so those are things that I would want to take on. I also believe in, you know, putting my money where my mouth is, so to speak. And so I have always been someone who has created and surrounded myself with a very diverse community. And in my own hiring practices, right, leading by example, I think that's a big thing that's really important to me. When you look at my team, when you look at, you know, that you see yourself reflected in the people that are part of leadership, right? And so, you know, that's my vision. I think one of the things I also talk about is how, like, I don't want to come at this and present myself like, oh, I'm the hero, I'm the savior, I'm going to fix it all, right? What I do recognize is that what's different about me and other candidates is I'm actually going to genuinely bring the community to the table in determining the solutions and the programs that we need. What do we need to do? What is going to help you? What do you know, based on your experiences, your work, your advocacy, what's going to make the difference, right? What's going to keep that landlord from being able to, you know, turn you down? What's going to keep that employer from being able to discriminate? Let's do those things, right? And let's make those differences, and let's hold people accountable for that kind of discrimination so that, you know, they don't feel like they can continue behaving in that way, and that they can continue barring access and opportunity from members of our community based on gender, identity, whatever it is, right? So those are the things that I think are really important. And I have, you know, it's funny, I don't use the word ally. I mean, that's not how I think about it. Like, I kind of think of myself as like a honorary member of the community. So I started off talking about this at the very beginning. I'm not sure where that comes from in my history and my identity, but I have always felt a kinship there, and I have always felt like an extended member of the family. So I take these topics very personally. And actually, I do have a lot of chosen family that is part of the community. So maybe that's it too, but I don't know what came first. It's just the way it is in my life.
Well, you know, as I was thinking of who to invite for this, obviously I thought, you know, who but most iconic, right? The most iconic house in New York City, the House of Extravaganza, but also Giselle, right? Also being the mother of the House of Extravaganza. She takes care of so many kids, so many folks. I've been in her house and I've seen how she handles, like, and she manages and she takes care of these kids. that, are getting thrown out of their homes, that don't have anywhere to turn around. So I thought that bringing Giselle on today, not only are we honored to have her presence and her stunning beauty as the international model that she is, but, I think it's important because she also recognizes, Giselle is, we've had these conversations of Giselle is able to pretty much walk free in the world, right? Where there's other people in the trans community that don't have those luxuries, right? That doesn't make them less part of our community. It is up to us to make sure, to say, come on and let's help you. So Giselle, thank you so much, for taking the time to be with us today, honey, because I know you're super busy, but I really wanted to make the connection between two amazing mothers.
Giselle, I would love to follow up with you. I want to learn more about the community that you've built, and I want to talk more about how we can grow that community and what we need to do to replicate the love and community that you've created.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to working with you and making you mayor. And, I want to see an Afro-Latina as mayor of New York City. I feel your passion and I feel your love, and I'm here. So
yes.
Thank you, mi amor. I'll see you later. I'll call you later, girl. Bye, baby. Oh my God, I love Giselle. She teaches me so much, day in and day out. I'm glad that you asked her, to let's connect, because you're about to learn some amazing, their history. Speaking of another one, we saw her amazing performance, but we have to bring her on live. She has to be here. Miss Kiki Bold Change is here because she has to ask a question. We have to have Miss Kiki's question because, she's coming over from Alabama, honey, and now she's hi, sweetie.
How are you?
So good to see you. You look fabulous.
So good. Thank you. I figured I'd wear the same wig of when we first met to honor the occasion.
That's very romantic.
So I'm in the full double stack, honey. It's huge.
I love it. Kiki, tell us, what is your question for Ms. Dianne Morales?
Okay, so I have been a performer since I was 7. I received my degree in musical theater. I'm part of the Actors Union, the Actors Equity Association, and I moved to New York to pursue a career in theater. Clearly, as my drag career progressed, my auditioning took a little bit of a back seat. And now with COVID closing almost every single performance space, Broadway being dark for months and months and months, all my friends, either in theater or nightlife, have found themselves completely without a sense of security, job security, financial security, or really any acknowledgement from our local, our state, or our federal government of what their plan is for all of the people that are in the arts and in performance, to have any sort of assistance, to have any sort of sense of security or safety in their careers. I'm all for protesting the outgoing administration or the incoming administration. The incoming administration, I believe, should have a Secretary of the Arts. I think the arts, especially in New York City, are the backbone of the city. I think we are one of the most, lucrative industries of the city. Performance, whether on Broadway or in nightlife, I believe help really finance the city and bring in tourism. So I guess my question is, how are you as mayor prepared to address the crisis? Sorry, I'm getting emotional. The crisis that so many of us feel like we are in right now. We don't have any way of knowing that our future is secure and safe in New York. Mm-hmm. So I want a mayor who will address that crisis, mm-hmm. and will help us realize that we are going to be okay, mm-hmm. and that Broadway is going to be back, and that performance is going to be back. Mm-hmm. Because right now it seems like there's no hope for a lot of us. And that's it.
Okay. Okay. So Kiki, you and I have never met. For those who are watching, Kiki and I have never met, but we started our relationship in July. I gotta tell you, honey, I love you. I love you. Thank you for the question. Thank you for your vulnerability. And I'm sorry. And I'm sorry that you're feeling the way you're feeling. I'm sorry that our leadership has in fact neglected so many of our citizens and residents the way that it has, and that it's led to people feeling this level of insecurity. So
sorry, I feel like we're all crying now.
No, honey, this is, and I'm going to interject because Kiki, thank you, because I have to say in 2021, we are to be in touch with our emotions. We are to feel the pain of our brothers, sisters, and siblings. And you, Kiki, like Dianne said, I have never met you, but as soon as I started creating this, your name came to the top of the list. And this is why. Because I feel your pain, and I feel that you literally care so much about our folks, and that's just New Yorkers, right? Not even just the LGBTQ plus community. You care about everyone. So I just want to say thank you for that, and go ahead, Diana, answer the question. I'm sorry, but I just have to say thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And also, I think it's exactly that emotion that we all need to be feeling, because we do need to feel a sense of shared responsibility for each other, and that is such a central tenet of my vision for how I think we need to lead the city moving forward. So Kiki, the first thing I'll say is that, one of the things that I've answered a couple of questions in this way, right? There's the immediate crisis of the moment, and then there's the longer term thing, right? I cannot tell you the frustration that I feel that we have failed so many people, that we have failed to provide the economic security just to get through this crisis. Just the acknowledgement that we need to shut things down because we need to, prioritize public health. And so because we know we need to do that, we're gonna provide for you so that you can stay home and that you can stay safe and that you can live in some level of dignity without worrying and being in fear and having this perpetual state of insecurity, which we know compounds so much the mental health status of people that just don't know where the next meal or the next rent check is going to come from. So I think that's one of the most critical failures of the moment that we've been living through and watching and dealing with and experiencing. And that would be one of the first things I would want to address. But the other thing is, to your point about the arts, it's so important. Yes, it's important from an economic perspective. But it's also just so important from a lived perspective. Arts is such a way for us to understand culture. It's a whole different way of education. My daughter was also a musical theater major. And part of why that's important to me, I will tell you, is that, both of my children struggled with learning differences. But for my daughter, it wasn't until she found musical theater that her academic sort of learning and experience blossomed. And she became a different person when she could learn through the arts, right? So I see that as a critical thing, not just from an economic perspective, but from just understanding that people have what we call, in the education field, multiple intelligences. Right? And that there's not just one way. It's not just math or science or reading and writing, right? The arts allow us to tap into a whole different side of our brain. And my screen has frozen. I don't know. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear it, yeah.
And so, to me, the arts are critical from an education perspective, from a personal growth and development perspective, from a cultural perspective, and from an economic perspective. And all of those things are inextricably linked. We can't separate one thing from the other. We have to acknowledge the critical role that the arts play, specific to New York City for sure, but also just in the world. And we have to be committed to reinvesting in that sort of sector and in that, in that art form. I mean, that form of intelligence. And so when I talk about, prioritizing small and mid-sized businesses, that's one thing, but there's also this whole sector of excluded workers that include so many of our artists that have not been eligible for the protections and the relief and the recovery, as minimal as it has been. But we need to increase all of that. And so, it's really important to me, both from my personal experiences and from, understanding and benefiting from the arts as an individual and a New Yorker. And that is my commitment to you.
I know she seems like it's good. We heard all of that. We heard all of it. I just think that we're having a connection issue, but I'm sure we'll get her right back. Did that answer kind of your question, Kiki? How do you feel about that?
I feel great. Dianne knows, I know she's not here right now, but Dianne knows that I sought her out after the vote from the city council to not defund the police. And that was a very huge issue for me in deciding who I wanted to support for mayor. So she knows from the beginning, since I first found her at the end of June, and then when we first spoke in July, that I am all the way in for Dianne. So I did, I already knew I was going to support her, but I did really want to know what she would say to that question, because I'm so emotional. I don't know why. I have so many friends, and I am part of a community that has had to completely reinvent ourselves in so many ways, whether that's, doing online shows on Instagram for drag queens, whether that's pivoting to a new career for artists that I know. We have all had to really, really dig deep without any assistance from anyone to really survive through this pandemic. So I love Dianne. I know she knows I love her, and I know she'll be back in a moment. But if you're watching this, Dianne, I love you. Thank you so much for having me, and I'll see y'all soon.
Yes, sweetie. Thank you so much. Again, thank you for taking the time. You were amazing. You and I are going to be friends for life. I can already feel it. And I just want to say again, thank you, because you were part of putting this together. So for that, I want to say thank you so much. All right, sweetie. Thank you. I know you have things to do, so I'll see you later, and have a great, 2021. I'll see you later.
You too. Happy New Year.
All right, sweetie. All right, guys. Oh my God, that was such a moment. You never expect to, cry or, get emotional when you hear, people speak. But, these stories are so long overdue, and, those are stories that we continue to listen, that, and things don't change. So I think that's kind of the frustration that comes through when we express how we're feeling. I think it's part of that trauma that we all feel. So I know there's going to be lots of tears in 2021, but I hope that those are also rebirth tears, a way of creating ourselves and reimagine New York City. All right. So for that, we're going to need some money. So let's bring in Miss Katrina, because Miss Katrina is going to ask you for some donations. I'm going to ask you for donations. We all have to donate because it is a people's movement.
Y'all caught me hydrating myself. Oh, girl.
Okay. Tell us what's up, honey. Tell us what's going on with the donation process.
Listen, I hope everyone is having a good, gay old time right now. Just watching this live stream. I know that we're still in the midst of a pandemic, COVID-19, so it's very difficult to find some joy, but I hope that you guys are finding some joy in all of this, especially just hearing everybody speak. I know Kiki Ballchange personally, and she is an example of white people putting in the work and amplifying POC voices. She has definitely done it for me. Me and her have never met in person yet, but just getting to know her throughout this whole entire year is definitely someone that I can say she a sister. So I really do appreciate her. And honestly, listen, like we said, we know it's a midst of a global pandemic and everyone is struggling in their own way, shape, or form. But if you can find it, in any way, shape, or form to be able to donate anything from $10 up to $250 to be able to get Dianne Morales into office. Not into office, but just to get the campaign running and getting it up from the ground. That will be definitely much appreciated. It's definitely something, and it's definitely a change that we need. 2020 was the year to open our eyes, and 2021 is going to be the year that we're going to put that action in motion. So, with that said, the way that we need, the way that we can do that is by your donations. If you want to send me personal donations, again, I'll give you my information later. My grinder's going off right now. I cannot. But other than that, Dianne has promised she is going to work with communities. She is going to work with the people. She is a person that has been standing up for so many causes. And as you can see, the way that she speaks so eloquently, like I said before, she is someone that means every single word that she is saying. So your donations are not going to go to waste if you do donate. So please.
Yeah, and I think another thing to remind folks, my love, is that, this year will be the NYC's first primary election with ranked choice voting. So what does that mean? Well, that means that you actually get to vote for multiple candidates and rank them in order of preference. So, that is a huge deal. Gone are the days of feeling like, you might waste your vote. There is no such thing. We are not wasting anything because we're gonna pick the winner, right? But we have to understand how we're going to pick them, okay? So for following your heart, listen, you have to follow your heart. I know that there's those people who vote for parties and, just kind of go blindly and check. I really hope that people take the time to read up on ranked choice voting because it's the future of our democracy. And the most important thing right now is to make sure that Dianne Morales stays in the race. So if you value her voice as you've seen it today, I want her to see us. I want to see her after the primaries on January 11th. So please donate. This is a grassroots campaign. Katrina and I are asking from the bottom of our hearts because we really know what it means to, help somebody in need. So again, Miss Katrina, thank you so much for being with us, my love. You were fantastic, and I cannot wait to meet you. And I need to order something and add another $15 to it because I need to have you perform.
Listen, if you put some $20, I will be the one cooking it. I cannot guarantee that it's gonna be good, but I will cook it.
Okay. Besitos, mi amor. Thank you so much. Absolutely amazing. All right, Dianne, you're back. Yay. Love it.
I'm back.
I love it.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Thank God I had another laptop right there. But the other one would just totally shut down.
Done. You know what? We kept it popping. We asked for more money for some donations and just shed some light on ranked choice voting, right? So folks can get educated. But we cannot leave Manhattan until we talk to Dr. Yvette Calderon, who is another Latinx hero of our present. She is a Boricua, Afro-Boricua too, honey, Taína too. You could see her. Wait until you see her. She is literally the chair of emergency medicine at Mount Sinai Hospital and has been dealing with COVID since day one, continues to deal with it, even with going through some personal trauma due to COVID. She's still fighting. She's still in the front lines. Dr. Yvette Calderon, please join our gorgeous conversation because we need you here. Say hello to Dianne.
Good to see you again, Dianne. Thank you so
good
much.
To see you. Happy New Year. Thanks for being here.
Well, Happy New Year to both of you, and thank you for having me. And actually, I'm the site chair of emergency medicine at Beth Israel, Mount Sinai Beth Israel. So, so I am so happy to be here to talk to all of you and wish you all the best in this 2021, which we're hoping will be some change.
And I definitely wanted to bring Dr. Calderon into the conversation because, we have to talk about vaccination. We have to talk about COVID. And It's a lot. Again, I think some folks touch on it, right? Even vaccination being traumatized as a culture, as a community, via medicine is a real thing. So Dr. Calderon, talk to us a little bit about, where we're at today. Today's the first day of the year, right? Like, how does the next month, 2 months look, and also vaccination?
So first, I have to say I'm a little concerned about the next couple of months. What we're seeing is an increase again of people testing positive, and we know that after the holidays, people have been together. I've had multiple calls from many different people saying I was just at so and so's house, and now I found out someone there was positive, et cetera, et cetera. So the concern is that we're going to have the hospitals are going to be seeing this quite a bit, and my hope is that the vaccination process will continue to go forward, and we'll be able to start vaccinating our patients and our communities. But this is my kind of conversation point, and I would love to hear your thoughts, Dianne, about this, because COVID has been really politicized, and I'm a physician, I'm a researcher. I base my thoughts on science, and I don't think that we've been doing a good job giving our communities the information they need about the science behind the vaccination. And I am so committed to having my community vaccinated. But yet what we're finding is that, 50–40% of people are saying no. And that's a real big concern. Yep. And when you think about the health disparities that occurred in the first surge and will continue to occur in the second one, what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate you raising this, and I would love to hear your thoughts about what we need to do, because I am experiencing that in my own home. My mother, who is 80 years old, is talking about, not me, I'm not, and meanwhile, my dad is like, I'll do it as soon as they can, as soon as they take me. And, I just was trying to have this conversation with my mother, who is a pretty intelligent woman, right? And who we have kept, safe in our home. I've had 3 generations living in my home. I was flabbergasted when she started saying no. And I actually kind of said to her, I said, Mom, you realize you sound a little bit like those anti-maskers, right? Like that sort of like paranoia and that, and I think it's different than the anti-maskers in the sense that many people from Black and brown low-income communities have reason not to trust, right? Correct. But at the same time, this is one of those things where the medical field is saying, yes, we can, and yes, we should, and yes, we need to. And yet there is still this profound sort of distrust, right? So I'm curious to hear from you what you think what strategies we need to be deploying on the ground to educate our communities.
I do think we need them. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think we need ambassadors that can go out there to speak about this, and we need to kind of have the answers for the fears, right? Yeah. I mean, one thing that comes out all the time is this happened so quickly, when in fact the technology of the vaccine, this messenger RNA technology, has been studied for over decades. So, and if you hear the scientists speak that know about this, they'll say the reason we could get so much of this vaccine done is because this technology can be mass produced as opposed to other technologies that take a lot longer. Not to mention the financial backing that was given to it. So, to take this away from the political conversation and to give it back to the doctors, to give it back to the scientists, I think it's going to be really important, because I am really concerned about our communities. Yeah. There's and you're right, the mistrust is there because, well, there's a history of mistrust.
Right, there's a lot of reasons for that. Yeah.
Totally. But I think when you think about this practically and you start hearing the real rationale behind all of this, then you know that what we are is a country that has been able to do so much in science and has evolved so quickly. Right. And this is really like an incredible time in science and in medicine for us to be able to say, we can now help people and protect them. And if you've had COVID before, you could still get vaccinated. It gives you even that much more protection.
Right.
So, and to also recognize, and I think this is the hardest part about human nature, which is science emerges. Things change day to day. And, right. And so we need to be able to handle that messaging as well.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I hope you guys better take it, because if not, I'll go find you, hunt you down, and give it to you myself. Okay?
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready. Can I just, I know I want to flip the script for a hot second here, because I have you. Because this past week I had several conversations with school advocates that on both sides of the spectrum, the like open schools movement and the like Black and brown families who are saying, you know, protect our children, protect our families. And so, you know, it was interesting to me that both of them were invoking science to bolster their positions. And, you know, it can't, both things can't be true at the same time, right? So I'm curious, I'm sort of, you know, asking out of school here, what your take is on the whole thing about schools opening and schools as like, you know, conduits for spreading or whatever. Like, do you have a take on that?
So what we know now, at least from the last publications that I've seen, is that kids tend to get the disease from adults, not from other kids. And kids also don't have the ACE receptors as much as adults do. So for them to get the disease is slightly harder. And then when they do get it, you know, they are asymptomatic or have very little symptoms. Like most kids, you know, who get viruses, you give them a little Motrin and they're hopping all around. And then if an adult gets it, you know, they're like in bed forever, right? So I think, you know, it's common that piece of it has been looked at, and kids just don't have as much ACE receptors. And that's great, because that's where the COVID latches onto. And when you think about where people are getting infected, is really in the homes. It's really in that multi-generational homes. And, you know, if someone steps out and doesn't wear a mask and doesn't protect themselves, they bring it back. So I do think that when I think about children, thankfully, they don't get that sick from this disease. And that's beautiful. So, and again, that's the safety part that I see from the science about having kids, if you do it in a smart way. And I've heard of smart ways that people have done it, where kids are in pods and they only interact with that pod, right? And if everybody does a contract with each other about how they're going to be, then all you can ask is for mitigation of the risk. I think that that's the most important part. But the science does say children, when they do get it, it's because, you know, mom or dad or grandma, you know, they live in the house and someone there has it, and it's because you're being exposed to it on a more chronic basis than a exposure and then a one and done and then gone. So, you know, I do think there are smart ways about thinking about this, and we're not the only city and we're not the only country that have really looked at this question. That we can, you know, sometimes we just have to look at best practices and hopefully, you know, engage with those best practices.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
I could say one other thing that I'm concerned about, and that is their education. Because their education, this is, you know, they're our future. And we need to fight for our kids to be able to have great educations. And so that's the other concern that I would weigh. I look at everything from a risk-benefit analysis, and I get very concerned about that risk.
Duly noted and shared, shared. So we're gonna, you know, I think on your point about getting our communities vaccinated and the education process is also duly noted. And I think, you know, I'm part of a couple of different groups, including some mutual aid groups that I think could be used as vehicles for informing our communities in a way that actually encourages them and gives them the right information to get vaccinated. I'll let you know how it goes with my mother.
Yes, please. And if you need to come over and speak to your mother, I am more than happy.
No, I might take you up on that.
We can Zoom. It's fine with me. I'm a pretty good convincer.
I mean, she would be so proud to talk to a Latina doctor. So
Okay.
she might actually just take your advice over mine. So
I appreciate everything that you're doing, and bringing awareness to this is probably one of the most important things, because we're not over yet. You know, the war isn't over yet against COVID. And as you well know, that it mutates a lot. And we found out that some of the mutations are a little bit more worrisome than others. And so we still got ways to go. So anything that I can do to help spread the word with you, I would love to.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
God bless.
I can't wait to see you again, Ms. Dr. Calderon, because like everyone I tell, anybody who knows Dr. Calderon knows that she's a hero, honey, of our present. And I cannot wait I'm not going to tell people much about you because I want them to tune in when I cover your story. All right, sweetie? But thank you.
God bless you guys.
For the time.
Thank you. Feliz Año Nuevo.
Año Nuevo.
All right, Dianne, we did it. We went through the 5 boroughs.
We did, and it only took us, what, 3 hours and something? That's good. The subway was good today.
I know. It's like we took this world flight. But I have to say that I have one more surprise for you, because it just wouldn't be right. It just would not be right, because I know there are so many of us, Dianne, that are so proud of you, because you have done something that no other freaking woman has done. And that is run for New York City mayor, honey. And I want to say, from me personally, thank you. Because I know that we all see you. I know that people who watch this today, I know they felt you. And I know that the people that you're about to see have definitely felt you. So guys, let's roll on a little surprise for Dianne. I just wanted to let you know, Dianne, que la isla de Puerto Rico is so proud of you. Oh. Everyone who I've spoken to are screaming Dianne Morales, because we are proud of you. Tell us, how do you feel after our gorgeous tour?
I'm
like part of the history making process, right? Like,
I will tell you a trick that I learned. Somebody told me about a year ago that I don't use as much as I should, is that when you're trying to speak and you start to feel yourself getting emotional, that what you're supposed to do is to put your tongue, push your tongue against the roof of your mouth. So I was trying that, but it wasn't working right now. Anyway, this has been so extraordinary. I mean, the parade of people that I've had the opportunity to speak with today that represent New York City, the New Yorkers that have come out to support today, to engage today, to elevate the message to our communities has just been so powerful. What an incredible way to kick off 2021. This is really the way, this is it. This is our year. And I am so excited about the possibilities and so excited about building something new in partnership with everybody that showed up today. And that special surprise is near and dear to my heart. La Isla, my people who I love and I miss. And you know, so all of my people in New York City, my people on the island, it's just been incredible to start the year this way. And I really, really appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate everybody showing up and sharing with us today. Thank you so much, Javier, for putting this together. You are a producer extraordinaire. So great. And to everybody behind the scenes, because you know, this has been kind of seamless with the exception of my computer shutting down. So everybody behind the scenes who has made this possible, you all are the bomb. I have the most incredible community on this journey with me. I am not doing this alone. This is all of us. So thank you.
Thank you, honey. Because of you, we had the actual material to create an episode because everything is true. And I want to say thank you to everyone who's tuning in. Thank you so much because, you know, when magic is happening, you just got to keep going. And I know that we said this was till 5, but never mind, right? But again, this could not be possible, as Dianne mentioned, without Emily, Cody, Brennan, Sonia, Gab, all the volunteers out the team. I mean, this team is everything and is so diverse and inclusive, and I love it. Like, it's literally our community working. This is the people working for the people. I gotta tell you guys, we have to teach our community, our advocates, our accomplices. We don't call them allies, but we have to teach them about our heroes. We have heroes in our own. We have Silvia Rivera. We have Sonia Sotomayor, Frida Kahlo. We have Roberto Clemente, Cesar Chavez, Juan Gabriel, Walter Mercado, hello, Lolita Lebron, you know. We have so many. Raul Julia, another show. Angie and Hector Extravaganza, thank you, because we have Giselle because of you. You see what I'm saying? So yeah. Actions have consequences, and I love teaching about our rich cultures, our tradition, our historic roles, like we just did today, because again, we see ourselves. If we see ourselves, we can be that. You know, this year specifically, I have learned that it is our responsibility and opportunity to unlearn racism, to educate others for the betterment of not only our lives, but the future generation lives, and for the safety, oh my God, the safety and the well-being of all of our community. We live in a country that has the highest rate of incarceration in the world. We have a system that treats you better if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. We must get to a place where we see and understand that historically, anger and fear have been and continue to be the essential weapons of oppression and abuse. We need a community like this community of people who stand up together. Again, you're not doing this alone. This is extremely important work, and every step of this work is absolutely vital and necessary. My people in Georgia, please make sure you vote, because we need the Senate, honey. We need the Senate. We don't want this whole excuse, well, the Senate and the blocking and that. No, we need this to go smoothly. Guys, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for being with us. Always remember to stay curious, be gorgeous, y amable. And let me just tell you that we're going to leave you with a fierce show from Miss Anita D, who is one of the NYC's up-and-coming dancing divas. She has been performing and dancing in front of other, like, millions. She's been doing drag for 4 years now, and drag gives her the chance to use her platform, like Kiki said, to connect with her audience on topics that she holds dear to her heart: equality, social justice, and mental awareness. So I knew I had to bring her in and have a fabulous closing. Thank you, Dianne. Te adoro, and I can't wait to make you mayor.
Thank you.
Mwah. Mi gente, I want to say, please put your hands together at home for Miss Anita D.
Yes.
Hi. I just want to say thank you so much for having me, Diane. This is such a pleasure to be here. Also to see someone of representation of people of color, being a woman, and just seeing your resilience and your strength is so inspiring. And as the crossdresser in me, you inspire me. So thank you for all that you do. Again, guys, thank you for tuning into this wonderful event. Let's get her in office. Let's make her mayor, because I know that she's going to have a voice for all of us and all the concerns that we have. So I'm going to do a number in the spirit of just womanhood and the beauty of it. I'm going to do a number that just has all the divas that you love and like literally have helped me get through a lot of times. So without further ado, sit back, girl. You've done a lot of talking. You sit back and relax and just watch me perform, baby. Give it up for me, Anita D.
This message lasts till hey nasty wanna beat your ass, bitch, because I'm gonna show you.
Friday night, you and your boys went out to eat. Then they hung out, but you came home around 3. Yes, you did. If 6 of y'all went out, then 4 of you was gonna cheat. Yeah. Cause only 2 of you had dinner. I found your credit card receipt. It's not right, but it's okay. I'm gonna make it anyway. Pack your bags up and leave. Don't you dare come running back to me. It's not right, but it's okay. I'm gonna make it anyway. Close the door behind you, leave your key. I'd rather be alone than unhappy. Yeah, it's not right, but it's okay. I'm gonna make it anyway. Close the door behind you, leave your key. I'd rather be alone than unhappy. Yeah.
Oh, she really came that way? Alright.
It turns out you were making a fool of me. Tell me where we first kissed. Tell me where my spot is. Tell me I like it. Love him or could be. That the stranger is me. Am I getting so drastically? Is it I want more of me? And you remember that.
That's so ratchet.
Oh, yes, honey. go. Oh my God. Whew. Whew, that's enough. Whew. That's enough. Listen, I am so happy, so thankful. Thank you again for having me. This is amazing, amazing event. Let's raise our money, guys. Again, if you're watching this show, if you're joining us, please, 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 please donate to a woman that is going to make sure our voices, people of color, women, the working class, and the class that is of artistry and nightlife, going to make sure our voices are heard, and also people of disability and our kids. I'm so happy to be here. I appreciate you guys so, so much. Thank you for having me, welcoming me in your space. And yeah, that was my number, good old womanhood number. So I don't know if I'd be able to maybe ask a question, because I know a lot of people are asking questions. But if I could ask the question, that'd be awesome. If not, I can take a breather. So you just let me know. But I hope you enjoyed that number.
Want to ask a question?
Yeah, can I ask you a question?
Yes, yes.
Wait. Before though, I just have to say that was amazing, and you kicked it off with my divorce anthem. So
you know, because you can't beat a woman's intuition, okay?
Oh my God, it was amazing. Thank you so much. That was extraordinary.
Absolutely. No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad and blessed to be here. So thank you. But yeah, I wanted to ask you a question and see your thoughts on it. You know, I work in nightlife, and as we saw, nightlife was hugely impacted, not just drag queens and performers, but also bartenders, servers, people in the restaurant and bar industry. And then also we saw this beautiful Black Lives Matter movement happen during the first lockdown and during this pandemic. So my question, kind of tying those two things in, is what would be your goals, or what things would you like to do as mayor to allow more opportunities for people of color that are in the nightlife industry to have opportunities to perform? Because I know, as a person of color, there has been some walls and challenges to getting my foot into the door, whether it's in local neighborhoods, certain bars or venues, or certain areas, and they tend to have a larger white kind of cast or employees or people that work at these venues. So what would be your way, or what would you do to give that opportunity to people of color that are artists?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm totally open to hear thoughts and ideas that you might have on that. The first thing that comes to mind, I've talked about the way I talk about this is like a two-pronged thing, right? One is like what we do in the moment to help people through this current crisis, right? And part of that to me is like providing people with the economic security that they need in order to be able to stay at home, to stay safe, to know, that you can cover your rent, that you're going to be able to feed yourself, like that kind of thing, right? We need to provide for people so that they can take care of themselves and not kind of live in this kind of constant state of crisis and insecurity that has so many different impacts, right? But then to the question that you asked, which, I think no one's actually ever posed it to me quite that way. And so, I was thinking about it as you're asking the question. And the first thing I think about is like, how do we encourage, how do we both hold, business owners or whatever accountable when they're not giving opportunities to our communities in the same way? And the flip side of that is like, how do we encourage that and incentivize that, right? And so, how do we deploy, measures to integrate the workforce and to provide access and opportunity to our community members as well? And so I think about, do we provide tax incentives or tax breaks to people who are going the extra mile to make sure that they're giving opportunity to our folks too, right? And I also think about how do we provide, from an equity perspective, how do we provide additional supports to Black and brown workers who are trying, who are out there on their grind, trying to make a living and struggling, right, because of the lack of access. So how do we provide additional supports to them while they are in that process and in that journey, right? So I think that's like two things, right? Supporting the community and then incentivizing and holding accountable the businesses and the industry in terms of making sure that they are applying non-discriminatory practices in their hiring.
I love it. I love it. Well, I appreciate you on that, and I appreciate answering the question. I think just as you've seen from the other drag queens that have performed, we are of this community, not only just the queer community, but also queens of color too. And we have all faced our own challenges, whether it be in different boroughs or because of our race or because of kind of our style. So, you know, I've learned through this pandemic that the nightlife industry, as well as the tourist industry, is like so quick to change. And this pandemic has shown how quick we are to lose all of our jobs. Whereas other jobs and careers have that safety net, whether it's benefits from their job, they're part of a union. And so that was like the first thing I thought of when doing this event about thinking for a question was just like, what steps would you take kind of to help us out? Because we, you know, no lie. And just to be honest, we are an industry that also brings a lot of income to New York City. You know, but then we're like one of the first industries that get hurt immediately from the pandemic. So it's hard being an industry that brings so much income and revenue to the city and then being the first ones that's kind of like locked down and closed.
That's right. That's right. And I think you're right. You're spot on that, right? Because I think what 2020 showed is that the people that bring the revenue and take care of us are also the ones that have been living on the margins and have been the most vulnerable and were the most impacted disproportionately by everything that happened, right? And so part of what I talk about in terms of my campaign specifically is that those are the people who we need to be centering when we think about building New York City. And I talk about building a new New York City, not building back New York City, because we already know that the old New York City wasn't working for us anyway. So I talk about building a new New York City and building a new New York City that actually takes care of exactly the communities that you're talking about. Because we need to acknowledge and recognize the contributions of those community members to New York City at large, and the idea that we can't be a thriving city, we can't be the best city in the world without all of those communities. And so we need to take care of those communities first.
Oh my God, thank you so much. Thank you for having me again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for that fabulous performance. Really appreciate it.
And the Batman, I peeped that. Thank you so much, Anita. And again, thank you so much, everybody. Follow us on YouTube and on Instagram at Latinx Heroes. And that's it, folks. That is our show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy 2021. Let's do this.
2021. All right, man.
Everybody.
Bye.
Just feel the love, oh yeah. Go ahead now, alright. Just feel the love.